Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 210. That's what I'm going to weigh if this quarantine doesn't end soon. This is the flagship show of Sifted Games at sifted.net. We're going to spin you around the gaming industry for the next couple hours. We'll talk about all the big games and stories that are cracking off right now. Sifted is 100% supported by Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/Sifted. Sifted is an ad-free website, so we get all our revenue from generous donations from our patrons. Head on over there and kick us up a couple bucks if you like our content. We got a big show today. We're going to talk about 3 games that we've been playing, which is a change from some of the more recent episodes where we've been talking about news stories and things like that. Along with me to discuss this stuff is Matt Kyle. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, same thing's been going on the last 6 weeks.
I am so over this. Everybody is. Like, everyone's starting to freak out, and like, I don't know. It's crazy right now. It's because we're at this inflection point where people are ready, like the dam's ready to break, but it's like the worst time for the dam to break. It's bad. So well, just hanging in there, staying at home.
The piper will be paid at the end of June, believe you me.
Yep. And also along with us, we have Mitch Sikorsky. Mitch, what's going on, man? We launched a project today on our new show, Sifted HQ. Mitch, why don't you talk about it very quickly?
Sure. I don't have a PC and want to build one. So I had already came up with some specs in mind, and with the price point I had and with the things I wanted to do, I came up with one. But this is a time for people to let me know if I made a good PC or if they recommend something else. I'm already can say right now, a couple of my parts I put on the show this morning, they're sold out. So,
oh, geez.
So I'm going to have to switch out some parts, but I do appreciate, I've already seen some stuff this morning of people making recommendations that I can switch out some of these parts for, and some people have said I've done a good job. So I really appreciate everything that's been coming feedback-wise, and just keep it coming, because the more I know, the more we can make a really cool PC, and then you get to see me build it and the performance at the end.
And the payoff is ultimately, if you're a patron to Sifted, this project is going to bear fruit for you because he will use it to create content for the site. So the whole idea is that it's interactive. We know that there are some hardcore PC gamers on Sifted, and you guys know your stuff. And we want you guys to help Mitch build his PC. He has a budget, and he has wants and needs for the build. And we are going to work with you guys over the course of 4 episodes to build a PC for Mitch. So go check out Sifted HQ. Watch today's episode, just went up today, and you can help Mitch help you, I guess is the best way to put it. So anyway, let's get on with the show. We have a ton of topics, so can't tarry too long. Let's kick things off with a game we discussed last week. But unfortunately, last week, I was the only person who had played it at that point, and the game is Gears Tactics. We're not going to spend as much time as we did last week, but Matt has been playing it. We always want to offer differing opinions on each game. And so we want to talk to Matt about what his experiences are, how they differ from mine. And I've also continued to play. And so my opinions on the game have changed a little bit since last week, not a ton. But anyway, Matt, what are your impressions of Gears Tactics?
I mean, not too different from yours, really. I'm at the end of Act 1.
Okay. So you just had your first boss fight.
Yeah. And I like it. Like it is somewhat simplified compared to like other turn-based strategy games, but I don't particularly get into the weeds on turn-based strategy much. So like it's closer to my speed, really. And I like that there's sort of the upgrade system and the base build. There's not base building, but there's like sort of like you go back to base and upgrade everybody and sort of like, you know, kind of take stock and then go back out.
Open all your loot boxes, get all your new stuff, equip all your new stuff onto your party. And then
I like that part. I don't miss kind of the XCOM style, like horrible things keep happening no matter what you do.
Just these weird emergencies that crop up in XCOM. Like, oh, they've invaded our base and there's like 50 dudes and you only have 3 people to kill all of them. Yeah. I don't miss that either.
there's things where it's like, oh, if you go over and do this, like time's going to pass and this country is going to leave your alone. Like, well, then why don't we send more people over there? Like,
yeah,
I can only get 6 dudes. Like, what's going on? So this is, very linear. There's not really any side stuff except like the closest thing to a side mission is running off to one side to pick up like a box.
Yeah, crates,
stuff like that. But that's fine. Like I don't mind. I don't really miss the franticness of XCOM on this. And we'll get to another XCOM game later in the show. But and I like the characters and the story. I mean, the story isn't specific, especially compelling because I don't find prequels particularly interesting in this regard. It's like I know what happens, but I do
I'll say this: there is one pretty big revelation in this game that adds a lot to Gears lore. Like I was shocked that it was in this game. There's a big reveal. I think it's in it might be the end of chapter 2 or the beginning of chapter 3, where you find out something about the Locust that I was like, what? Okay. The story, I'd agree. The story's not great, but it's not bad either.
No, production value is there.
Yeah, there are actually some scenes that are pretty well written. I've been pleasantly surprised at times by some of the performances from the voice actors, some of the writing in it.
Yeah, I kind of like it's like Last of Us to me. It's like I don't think the overall story is particularly compelling so far, but like the characters and moment to moment stuff keep you going.
Yeah,
and sort of the question of why Gabe is the way he is, and everybody mocking him for being motor pool guy, and apparently he used to be sort of a badass, and that's why they came together. Like it's you don't miss the old characters. Yeah, at least I don't.
Yeah. So you're at the point I was at basically last week when I talked about the game. So I have continued to play a lot more. In fact, I would say in the middle of last week, I was addicted to Gears Tactics. It was one of those things where I've been obviously playing it on PC. So while I work, if I'm waiting for something to render or I just have like 10 minutes I need to kill while something else is happening, I'll just pop it up on the window and just play. And it's great because you can just take a turn and then go away and come back and pick it right back up. And so I got pretty hopelessly addicted to that game last week. It started to have that civilization like kind of takeover element on me because it's that same thing. It's that one more turn. I have time for one more turn. And you just keep doing it and doing it. But I would say over the weekend, when I actually had a little bit of time to actually dedicate and play it in like a bigger chunk instead of just like 10 minutes here, 30 minutes there, I did start to sour on the game a little bit. And a big part of that is because, in all honesty, and I hardly ever say this, the game is just too big. It doesn't have enough variety to buoy the game for as long as it is. So you haven't got to the point
I feel like
yet.
That's a pretty constant Gears problem.
It could be. You haven't quite got to the point yet where the mission objectives really start repeating. Like there are a handful of objectives. One of them that I really hate and I got really sick of, I don't even know if you've done one yet, is where there's a red line that you constantly have to be ahead of because they bombard you if you're not past that line.
No, so, I haven't done that, but I have done the one where basically you're just supposed to go in the third or fourth mission where you're supposed to go in and rescue prisoners, and they only let you take 2 people.
Yep.
And you have we got to get 2 things. And you have like 15 turns to do it, and and they're just like, well, a whole squad would just slow us down. Like, no, it wouldn't. You could split into 2 groups and go get them at the same. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, later on, Matt, one of the other common mission objectives is you'll get 2 points that you have to capture and defend. And then as you capture them, you get supplies. And then there's like a bar that goes back and forth. How many packages you've got versus the enemy. And then it gets to a point where there are 2 points and you only have two characters. So you have to basically go and take and defend a point with one person. But those 4 or 5 different mission types just repeat over and over. In the side missions, I said last week that they don't really give you any latitude. They're not really side missions, and they're not. But how they do work is you get presented with like 3 of them and you need to complete 2, or you get presented with 4 and you need to complete 3. So there's a little bit of latitude, but those were also the sections of the game that ultimately caused me to stop playing. I got to the next one of those screens where it shows like 4 different mission types just to get to the next chapter of the game. And I was like, all right, I think I'm done. Will I go back and finish it? I don't know. But it was, it's a $60 game and I've got more than my money's worth. If I had spent $60 for the game, which fortunately I didn't have to buy it, but if I had, I would not regret the purchase decision at all. So it's good. It's really good. I've not played the next XCOM, which we're going to discuss in a couple minutes here. But it's the most I've enjoyed a turn-based strategy game in quite a while. John Wick Hex comes out today for PlayStation 4. It's already out for PC. And this is way better than that as well. So it's been quite a while. Maybe the first XCOM was the last game that I enjoyed as much as this one in this genre.
The last turn-based strategy game I really enjoyed was Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah. A little more RPG-ish than this one. But yeah, I can understand. There's very similar games. So yeah, I guess I would say that would be for me too. And I will say this too about Three Houses is that it held up a lot longer because it was an RP. It had RPG elements. This doesn't really have those. It has light versions of it, but yeah, I think
that's a lot of them. I mean, I liked XCOM Enemy Unknown and XCOM 2 and what was the one that just BattleTech. Like I like the games, but like I burn out on them real fast because I feel like they both run out of ideas and they also sort of get challenging enough through you set up challenging ideas, but then you hit like kind of the randomness that annoys the shit out of me and
missing the 87% shot and you're losing a guy.
And that's like the fulcrum the entire mission fails on is because you missed that one shot. I'm just like, well, now like that's 15 minutes gone. And
yeah, because some of the missions each mission has like conditions that you can satisfy. And each mission generally has 3 cases that you collect. Some of them have 4 or 5 though, later on in the game. So you collect these cases that are scattered all over the map. And and then when you finish the mission, you go back and they're basically the loot boxes I was talking about last week that you open up, you get all your stuff, and then you equip it all. But there's the skill trees go pretty deep. I will say that. So when you're talking about, RPG elements, I guess that part of it is pretty deep because each character has like 4 different branches that they can go out on. And each branch has, I don't know, like probably 20 different things you can upgrade, something like that.
Yeah, you don't get to run around a school and talk to everybody, but like it has plenty of SRPG elements built into it.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed it. Matt, would you recommend Gears Tactics for purchase?
Yeah, I think I would. If you like Gears and or the turn-based strategy thing or curious about it, it does it very well. If you have Game Pass, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. You should mention that, actually, how that works.
Yeah, well, I had, I guess I have Ultimate Game Pass because I think I got it when they did the post E3 deal last year and just kept that subscription rolling. So I was able to just download it and play it. Like, no problem. Yeah. And look, that's like $15 a month, I think. And like between this and Gears 5 and Outer Worlds, like I think like I've paid way less over the course of like a year than I would have for like just the 4 games I played on it. So it really is like one of the best deals going in terms of like, because it wouldn't be so much if it was like a later thing, but the fact they give you day one access to these huge AAA games that they're putting out, like why would, especially now when you can get it for $1 if you don't have it.
Now, one thing I will say is that I do not have Game Pass Ultimate. I just have the regular Game Pass. And the weird thing to me is that there's a separate Game Pass just for PC. And so this game is on Game Pass for PC, and you can get it for $1 a month right now. So you can play this game for $1. So well worth it, obviously.
The only other thing I would say is I played this both with mouse and keyboard and with controller, and I don't think either works particularly well. And I'd agree with that, actually. It's weird in that like it just feels awkward on both, and I don't know how they manage that. Because I played with controller because I'm like, I'll pretend it's like an Xbox game because a lot of people are going to play this on their Xbox and I'll just and it was okay, but like having to like the way you choose between moving and using a move is weird, and there's a lot of like scrolling through options instead of like, which I think could have been like a more elegant solution. And then I switched I did that the first night I played it, and then I went back to it. I used mouse. I'm like, I'll use mouse and keyboard because I mean it is turn-based strategy. It's probably meant for that. but it's not really like, because one of the things
still,
I like about turn-based strategy is like most turn-based strategy games I can play one-handed. I can just use the mouse and use my other hand to like browse stuff on my laptop or do whatever. Because
you can't in this one.
You can't because you have to use the numbers to pick things. And like even in the menus, like unless you move the mouse all the way down to the corner to hit like the enter thing, you can't like just click to continue, or you have to go all the way. You have to hit the enter button on the keyboard. It's bizarre. Like It took
me a while to learn the interface and learn all the options that each character has on each turn, and because selecting each weapon creates a whole new list of things.
Yeah, it's like it was just weird because like, I'm used to it now because I've been playing probably like 4 hours. But like early on, I'm like, this is like the worst of both worlds somehow. Like
they tried to find a middle ground and didn't satisfy either.
No, it's not quite there. I mean, it doesn't ruin anything. It's not like bad. It's not like a barrier to play or anything. But it's just early on when I first started, like the first 2 missions, I was constantly like hitting things in the interface. I was like, really? Oh,
yeah. I've also accidentally clicked and like doomed a mission. Like just maybe that's just my mouse. It's really sensitive.
I haven't done that yet. I've done that in XCOM though.
Yeah, because what you do is you trace the line with your character to see how far the character can go, if he can fit into cover and things like that. And I was stretching like really far with my arm, and I guess I just put too much pressure on it and clicked, and it completely failed a mission. And that's the other thing. These missions can take a while sometimes. Some of them are short, but some of them can take a while. Because you just end up grinding it out, just healing your people and taking your pot shots when you can get them. I do love the Overwatch in this game. It adds a nice element of strategy to it.
Yeah, the Overwatch is done well in this. It's the same as XCOM to some degree, but like I love the fact that you can use your whole turn to just fire 3 times in Overwatch if you know like a bunch of enemies are coming for, a bunch of grubs are coming at you or something. Especially what are the little guys?
I don't remember.
Little guys that swarm you.
Like the ones that explode, or the ones that just
just the little like little grunts.
You may not have got to the exploding guys yet. Actually, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, but just when those guys come in and there's like 6 of them, and you're just like, just set up with the Overwatch, and you'll take them out as they roll in, and like that's satisfying. And it also feels very Gears. Like
it does.
They really got the feel. It feels like playing a Gears of War game. Like I'm impressed that they made a turn-based game, and it like actually feels like I know what I'm playing. It doesn't feel like just like a generic turn-based game like hosed down in Gears juice. It's a real Gears game.
Yeah, and like I said, there's important stuff that happens in the story that Gears fans will want to know about. They may just want to watch videos on YouTube or whatever, but yeah, there's some pretty big happenings that take place in this game. That
people in the chat are asking what Overwatch is.
Oh, okay. So I explained it last week, but Overwatch is once you have a character set up, instead of attacking an enemy, you can basically set up a cone of influence. It's kind of like the passing cone in the old Madden games, and it's a cone shape that you can move. And depending on if they have a sniper rifle, the cone's really narrow and it can go a long way. If they have a shotgun, it's really wide, but it's not very far. And if you have like an assault rifle, then it's kind of in between. And you just set your character up. And if an enemy walks into that zone of that cone of influence, then you automatically shoot them. And it's not even your turn. So you're attacking on their turn. The other important part about it is that it interrupts. So Matt was talking about those small guys that just will run up and they'll swipe you, and they take a ton of health off of you as well. Well, anytime you shoot an enemy during Overwatch, it interrupts them and they can't keep rushing at you. They stop in their tracks. So there's a lot of stuff that you can use it for to add strategy or just to bail your butt out, in all honesty. If like you have a character that's about to die and you need to heal it and you just need to kind of provide a shield from enemies coming in to swipe them. So it adds a whole other layer to things. And as Matt has mentioned, there's a similar mechanic in XCOM as well. But I'm
playing B-roll of it now, so they should see what it looks like.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's one thing that really stinks about doing this mobile, among like a million other things, is that we can't see the B-roll anymore. When we do the show in the studio, we can see the footage that's playing. And a lot of times it like jogs my memory about something that I wanted to talk about. Things like that, but we can't do that anymore. We don't even know what's happening until the show's over. I just see Matt's chat window, and that's pretty much it. So, but I do recommend Gears Tactics. It grinds you down eventually. You have to have some fortitude, I think, to finish it ultimately. But I got more than $60 worth of entertainment out of the game. I really, really enjoyed it up to a point. And I'd say I probably put in 24 hours all told at this point, somewhere around there. So it's a big game. You'll definitely get your cash worth. And Matt, I think that's a buy from you too.
Yeah. Buy and or at the very least, it's to subscribe to Game Pass.
Yeah, for $1, man. It's like
particularly when it comes to Xbox, whenever that happens.
Yep.
If you don't want to do a PC subscription for it.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a story that broke this morning. It's rare that we get new stuff coming out on a Tuesday other than game releases that makes it into the show, but that's the case this week. So it's interesting. I've talked about it before, but I was a skater for 12 years and hardcore, like skated every day. On weekends.
He was a skater boy.
I was, yes. Going on road trips to skate parks and driving to like Lansdowne, Maryland to find this legendary old outdoor. Like I
saw
was
some old pictures of that era this week on Facebook too.
Yeah, that's true. And so
you can't even buy pants that length anymore.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So anyway, I was a skater. I was in skate culture. I was in the punk and hardcore scene. I was in it neck deep for like 12 years. So skateboarding games have always been near and dear to my heart. I don't know if anyone was happier when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was first released way back when. To finally have a good 3D representation of skateboarding was something I thought I'd never see after years of playing games like TNC. And in all honesty, skateboarding games pretty much sucked up until Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. 720 in the arcade. That's it. Yeah. Yep. Which was like basically a modified Paperboy game if you really look at it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But it had like the swirly joystick on the arcade cabinet. Yeah, I loved 720. But otherwise, skateboarding games have pretty much sucked.
I didn't know until that game that the natural enemy of skateboarders is actually bees.
Yeah. It's actually rednecks, but at least that was my mortal enemy when I skated. They hated us for no reason whatsoever. But anyway, so, I've been a part of this culture for a long time. So it was exciting when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came along. Everybody else obviously realized the greatness of that game. The franchise absolutely exploded for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, where they kind of refined the formula. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, I was at GameSpot when that came out. I'm not sure if it was Ryan Davis or Jeff Gersman that actually did the review, but the game got a perfect 10. And it was one of the few that GameSpot had given out. Now they're being a little more liberal with their 10s.
At the time, that was very unusual.
It was huge,
and bizarre, I thought. But
well, I don't know. I worked with those guys every day, and they were huge Tony Hawk fans. And if you watched them play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, I think you would understand it because they were so good at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater that the things that they added in Pro Skater 3 completely changed the way that they played the game. Like I sat in a cube right next to Ryan Davis and his TV was right there. So I got to watch him play anything he played all day, every day. And Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 took it to another level. And if you watched them play it, you totally got it immediately. So internally at GameSpot's editorial team, nobody argued against it, like because we could see it. And
3 was pretty much the end of my interest in the series.
Well, what I was getting towards is that was it. I mean, it wasn't it because a ton of more games were released after that, but it was just a steady decline of interest in sales after that. The franchise got
to me, that series was basically platforming. 1 and 2 were great.
It was a platformer, the 3D platformer. Absolutely, it was. And I think we even maybe classified it as that on GameSpot, if I remember correctly.
You might have. I think I remember arguing with someone over that because I agreed with that and they thought it didn't make any sense.
It is. It absolutely.
But I'm like, I don't know what else you'd call it. It's not a sports game, really.
Yeah. And then it became bloated. They just kept putting more and more stuff in it. Like the last one was Tony Hawk's Proving Ground, the last real one anyway. That was from 2007.
Just stop making me, stop trying to make me care about Bam.
Bam Margera?
Yeah.
Nobody cares about him anymore, man. He's a mess right now. He's trying to get his life back together, but the money did not treat him particularly well.
All that stuff was like all the American Underground stuff. All that stuff was so weird.
They tried to take it in this like narrative driven and the writing was awful. They were using the real skaters as actors and just motion capturing them. And so the acting was terrible. The voice acting was bad. Like the new features that they were adding, like Proving Ground's big new feature was like getting off your board and walking. And it was like, wait, I mean, and look, you can watch some people play it and the way that they mess with that mechanic can be pretty cool because they'll do tricks and then they'll run and then they'll jump and then they'll caveman slide down a rail or whatever. But for most people, it just became absurd after a while. And then they did a remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. It was a travesty. It was awful. What year was that from? Was that 2015 maybe?
That sounds about, I think that was around the early GameFace days, because I think I remember you and Marcus talking about it.
Yep. And since then, it has been crickets. Activision.
Yeah. Although I'll tell you something I played this week. I haven't played in forever because I got an HDMI adapter for my original Xbox this week. And so I played Tony Hawk 2X.
Oh, wow.
Which is like the mashup of 1 and 2.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
Is like,
I forgot about that.
That shit's gold. It's just gold. And it was great because on the old Xbox, you could replace the music with your own MP3s if you put them on the system's hard drive, which apparently I still have all those MP3s still on there because it's the original system. And like I played that for a while. I'm like, that was great. It was weird that like this came out today because I'm like, I just played Tony Hawk for the first time in like 9 years this week. So
I just went on a nostalgia trip this week as well. I was digging out my N64 for a segment that I did for Sifted HQ. And so I ended up getting into all these old bins full of stuff. And I got out my N64 and I used it for what I needed to use it for. And then I started like popping in my games. That N64 literally hasn't probably been turned on in 15 years, maybe something like that. And so I wondered like what was up with my carts and the saves on my carts because they're battery powered and often they disappear eventually. So I started popping in all my old N64 carts. And will you believe that all my saves are still there? Still. Yeah. I mean, those carts are 20 years old.
Well, you'd think at this point, I think a lot of the Super Nintendo games with battery backups are starting to die. 20 years seems to be about the span.
They're right on the fringe, I guess. Yeah. Like
there are ways to fix that. There's like ways to do that. And then like, of course, the ones that use the save on the controller pack, that's just flash memory. You'll never lose that.
Yeah, I'll never lose. They're all there still. But anyway, sorry for the tangent. So the big news is today it was leaked by a skater. And the reason I wanted to explain that I was a part of skate culture is because I'm going to explain now why this happened. So a skater, Jason Dill, and he's been around forever. He was a skater back when I skated. So he's been around for a really long time. And in all honesty, skaters just don't give AF. They just don't. They don't care. They don't care about like NDAs and things like that. And so Jason Dill was on like a podcast this week and he just blurted out, there's a new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater coming. It's coming out this year. He also let slip that there's a new skate coming, but here's the bad news. Is for mobile. Jason Dill has been involved in the Pro Skater franchise for a really long time. I'm guessing he probably has great connections. He is friends with Tony Hawk and has been for a really long time. Tony Hawk has been hinting at things for quite a while. I still watch skate videos on YouTube all the time, and he's in them a lot, just hanging out or whatever. And he has dropped hints at least 6 times in the last 12 months.
He's made some vague tweets too. Like
he's made some tweets.
Clearly, something was in the works like over the last year because I do follow him on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So
he also was on The Masked Singer recently too. So he's kind of been promoting himself a little bit more.
That's
and I've
funny.
been like, oh, Tony Hawk's still around.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is that I believe this news. Jason Dill wouldn't just say that. I know you guys don't know who he is, but I do, and he wouldn't just blurt that out if he didn't know something. So, and I don't know him personally, but I've known him for 20 years and he's just from media and stuff. But anyway, so I do believe the news that a new Tony Hawk is on the way. So now the question becomes, what the hell do they do with it? Matt, you're a big fan of the franchise. Do you think they should just chop it down and keep it simple?
I would make something closer to Tony Hawk 2 than Tony Hawk American whatever
it was. American Proving Ground.
Yeah, like I don't need some kind of weird open world live your skateboarding fame dream thing. Like I still think of that when I see like the terrible stories in like the Forza Horizon games and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like
it's very similar.
Yeah, it's just like this point. I was like, dude, you can't pander to me. Like, don't patronize me like that. Like, just let me play the game.
Yeah, it's like admit that it's just something you're not good at yet, and just don't do it.
Like I just give me like the old first 4 games, which were just like a collection of really well made levels and some really compelling mechanics. And
arcade scoring. Arcade
scoring. We get some multipliers, find the lines, find the skate letters, find the VHS tapes, have a little tutorial that explains to children what they are. Just go back completely to basics and
nail it. Nail the basics. Just start over like you did with the first one. So the first one, great idea, but rough around the edges. But it was enough where you could see, okay, this is going to be something. Second one, sublime. And so do the same thing. Start with the basics. Create a game that plays really well, that's fun, that makes people want to replay it over and over again, like the first two Tony Hawk games. Then with the sequel, you start flexing a little bit and adding some extra stuff to it. I don't want to repeat the whole cycle again, though.
No, but I see the Tony Hawk games a little bit like the Sonic games, where like that first one has that kind of like, oh, there's some promise here. There's something, they got something. Second one's like, oh, they refined it. They figured out kind of what things are. Like, this is really well done. And then the third one, like, some people love it. Some people got turned off at that point. The fourth one just sort of an extension of the third one. And then there's a whole mess of crap for years.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's time to bring it all back. And Sonic managed it. Tony Hawk might be able to manage it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they do return to the core tenets of the franchise that made people love it, I think it can be successful. I also wonder, too, who will develop it, or who is developing it? It's coming out this year. Also,
I think if you can, there should be a thing where if you can prove that you still own the skateboard from Tony Hawk Ride, you get like $5 off.
You get it free, bro. I have one in this closet right back here over my shoulder, unopened, brand. In fact, no, I think it's right under this bed that's behind me right here, covered in dust, I'm sure. They should give it to you for free if you have one of those boards. So I agree. I think they should simplify it. But then I wonder, too, so who's going to make it? Because Neversoft, after the franchise went away, was dissolved. So it doesn't exist anymore. I do wonder if you put it in the hands of a more capable studio, does then the story stuff make a little more sense?
Maybe, but I don't know. Like, the question becomes like, are you still dedicated to having the skaters voice it? And because that's part of the problem. Also, like, I don't think that would work as well because you're going to want to like get the classic guys in there, and they're all like 52 now. And like, I don't know what they'd be. Like, if I was going to be forced to put a story in a Tony Hawk game, I would go completely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And make it like take place in a world where skateboarding is the entire end all be all of existence, and like Tony Hawk and all those guys run like a Hogwarts for skateboarding, and like you go to like become like a skate wizard. That
would be awesome.
And shit. And like that's like it's all like an excuse for like you're at like the skate academy of something, and like that's the whole purpose is you're like getting a degree in skating.
Yeah.
And like they all get to play like kind of the professors. It's like they can be goofy and weird.
One is like the street skating professor.
Yeah, exactly.
The other's like the bowl skating professor. Yeah. The other's the vert ramp skating
welcome
professor.
To the pool. Welcome to the pool, boys. Like it's like,
the one's like a freestyle professor. Yeah, that could absolutely.
You got to go back to the dorms, and like there's like the evil skate house, and there's like the good guys, and there's the technical guys, like the Ravenclaws who just like do all the math on how the tricks work and stuff.
Yeah, they're skate betties.
Fuck, I got to pitch. I think we got something. Stop that project. Start it over. We got a better idea.
Someone just mentioned in chat game manual. I don't know if it's manual because that's his name or if it's because he's a skater and he does manuals. But he does bring up that Skater XL. I think
that's Rob Manual.
Oh, it is? He brings up that it's Skater XL, Session, and Skate Story are also coming. There's a couple mobile games.
Yeah, that's definitely Rob if he's recommending all those indie things.
That's true. That's a good point. What's up, Rob Manuel? What's going on, brother? Hope you're doing well.
That's another X-Play veteran.
It is. Yeah. Hope you're doing well. He was my assistant editorially at X-Play. He handled all the work, honestly.
Yeah. We hired him originally because like he wrote Yu-Gi-Oh strategy guides, and I knew that meant I wouldn't have to do the Yu-Gi-Oh reviews anymore. that was my recommendation. Like, what do you think? I'm like, I think we should hire him so I don't have to do this shit anymore. And so we did, and so he did. And that's
Sneaky Shalid Snake, I always have to say it that way, is saying that we're old at talking about how we want the older games. And that the newer generation wants a Tony Hawk's Underground 3. So, I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. Yeah, I don't know.
We got the money. So.
It's not going to be Neversoft. Activision is not working with Tony Hawk. They don't have a contract anymore. So
the fact that Neversoft's not around to make it anymore might be the best argument in favor of Sneaky Solid Snake's point, because I don't know if I trust anyone to make that old school Tony Hawk again. So maybe you should just bunt and make like a story driven.
Yeah. I mean, it is possible that Tony has reunited with Activision and that they have signed a contract and he's working with them again. But I just don't know
who you get to do it.
Yeah. But if he has not, then it's not going to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. It's going to be something else. Tony Hawk, blah, blah, blah. Skate your brain off or something. I don't know. It's Tony Hawk Hogwarts, I guess, is what it's going to be. So, Mitch, you're a fan of the franchise as well. What do you want in the next Tony Hawk game?
I'm similar with you guys. When Sneaky Solid Snake made that comment, I was like, I'm a youngin', and my best memories of this game was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. I still have the jam-packed demo of that game where I can play as Spider-Man from the Spider-Man game. So, the more archaic it is, and easily accessible the game is, I think that's its bread and butter of that franchise. Skate.
It's like I said, it transcended, right? Because I was a skater and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then it turned out it was so damn good that it transcended skaters and it just became a phenomenon.
And I think one of the reasons that happened is because it was so pick up and play. Yep. It was like, you played a level and you got your score and you hand the controller to the next person and everybody played and everybody drank and hung out. All that. And like once you hit kind of the more open world career driven versions of the game, that stopped being a thing because you didn't want anyone else to play your save kind of thing. It stopped being sort of a party game.
And I think the issue came into play was when Skate, the game, came into play. That was a much more realistic game. And I'm not as much of a hardcore skater when I was a kid as Shane was, but I did do inline skating. I did skateboard almost every day for a couple of years in middle school, basically. That was kind of my grow-up years. And so during that time, we enjoyed Skate more because of the realistic flipping of the stick of the controller to flip the skateboard. And I think Tony Hawk tried to pivot to match that with doing the story stuff, and that's just not what it is or what people play it for. And it just couldn't execute.
I still like the early Tony Hawks better than Skate, but by the time Skate came out, I liked that better than what Tony Hawk was doing at the time.
It was fresh. Yeah, it was definitely fresh, and I think that was appealing for it. But at the same time, I think when they tried to move to do what Skate does, it just wasn't going to work.
No, it was also too late.
Yeah. You segued nicely into the fact that, there's a new Skate coming as well. Granted, it's a mobile game. I think you're right. I think most skaters liked Skate more because it was realistic. I, for one, did not, though. I don't necessarily think that something being more realistic makes it better or more fun. There was a snowboarding.
I liked the skill. You had to have skill to actually execute a simple move because it is hard to do it.
Yeah, my problem with that game was there were too many tricks assigned to the stick. So the difference between doing a crooked grind or a Smith grind was literally 8 degrees on the analog stick, which whatever.
That was a problem.
Yeah, it was very limiting.
It's not a big deal for the most part, but there are parts of that game where they require you to do very specific lines. It'll be okay, do a backside Smith grind down the first rail, do a caveman slide down the second rail, and then do a crooked grind down the third. And if you had to do the exact trick. And once you got into the corners of the analog stick, it was very hard to do that very specific trick. And that started to drive me crazy. Again, very realistic. Skateboarding is, and I've played, I'm not even kidding, pretty much every sport. Skateboarding is the most difficult sport in the world. Maybe there's another one that I haven't played, but of all the ones I've tried, it is the most challenging. It's why I loved it. So you're right. Skate being really hard is realistic. I just didn't find it particularly fun. Same deal with the snowboarding game for Xbox, Amped, freestyle snowboarding. Again, very realistic if you're a snowboarder. And I am and was a snowboarder. And I played the game. And it just wasn't any fun because you couldn't even carve down the hill without falling down. There's certain things that you need to make
It's if I want to do that, I'll just go snowboarding.
Right, exactly. And so it's
I think in a sense it was filling a need. Like there is
Sure.
that
I
casual
agree with
game
that.
available, and now there is a realistic one. So now you get to
Yeah.
pick and have a preference. And I think that offering that choice, but then when they try to compete with each other and be too similar, then you're losing that wide variety.
we have
You
a
got a
gift
bit
sub
of a-
off and
Yeah,
going on in the
say
chat.
Yeah, I
there's
was
a
just
gift
about to tell you that
subscription war.
Sound Wizard and Tiny 2K are going head to head gifting subs to Sifters in the chat. That's the best kind of competition that we could ask for. I see
so far,
Vincent is
20
asking.
tier 1 subs between the two, each
Yeah,
given
thanks,
10
guys.
apiece.
That's freaking awesome. Thank you. Vincent is asking if I have played Session or Skater XL. No, I have not. I have been requesting preview code for both of those games for a while, and for whatever reason, the PR company never gets back to me. And one of the guys I know really well, Anthony Chow, you know him, Matt.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, he's repping Sessions, and I keep emailing him. I'm like, bro, like I want to cover this, and I never hear from him. So I'm trying, but I haven't got to play it yet. Skate on mobile may be one of the biggest travesties ever, though, because if you think about Skate, it's built its reputation on being this hyper realistic, really challenging skateboarding simulation. And now it's going to be on mobile where you basically are just going to tap an obstacle and you'll just automatically do a trick over it. Like, if
Maybe they'll turn the smartphone into like a fingerboard.
maybe
Like,
That's what I was thinking. It was
flip
gonna be a
probably, yeah,
fingerboard.
where you like use your fingers to like play it. Probably.
I mean, the
Again,
good news there is that EA could be using that as like a test the water thing for a bigger
Let's hope.
project down the line.
Let's hope.
So-
Because as much as wasn't a huge fan of Skate, I want skateboarding games out there. I want to be able to play new ones. Skate 3, it's like there are streamers who still play Skate 3 and are making like millions of dollars off of playing Skate 3. So there's a demand for it if they can make a good game. I think all the mobile game is going to do really, though, is piss off fans of Skate, because they'll be like, we've been begging you for this, and this is what you give us. Like,
well, Vincent's also saying that the mobile game is a Skate 3 port.
oh, it's just a port. Well, there you go.
And also, if you put both games out at the same time, you're basically limiting your customer base. You might as well release one, wait a year, then release the other, and not release both in the same calendar year.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we're going from 0 to 100 real fast here. It was like there were no skateboarding games for years and years, and now there are like too many. So
20 years, nothing, and then it all piles up in one day.
yeah, exactly. That is kind of the
If
way
anyone
things
knows
work,
what
though.
that's a reference to, I will be very impressed.
I don't know.
Me neither.
Are you going to tell us?
It's from an old Warner Brothers cartoon.
Which one?
The one where Bugs and Yosemite Sam are both trying to marry Granny for her money, and they're chasing her around the house, and she goes 20 years, nothing, and then it all piles up in one day. I don't know why that popped in my head.
I don't either. I don't know how you pulled that out of your hat, but anyway.
That is my mind is just a bunch of movie quotes.
Well, anyway, the bottom line is I'm excited about this. I'm happy about the news of both games. I don't play a ton of mobile games, but I'll say this, like when Skate 3 comes out, I'll try it. Granted, if it's free to play, I'm not going to buy it, but in all, I just think it's really, really good to start having some of these games come back around. And it's good to get some fresh minds on these concepts as well. Maybe somebody comes up with something that's really cool and unique and different that everybody can enjoy. So I'm glad they're back at it. I'm intrigued to find out what's going on with Tony, where he's headed, who's developing the game, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. We'll probably won't have to wait too much longer to hear about it if it's coming out this year, probably in June at one of these events that's coming up.
Also, look up Tony Hawk's Twitter and just like because he occasionally tells stories about not being recognized.
Oh,
and like he'll like people at the airport or I mean probably not now because no one's in the airport, but like he'll go up and somebody be like check his ID or whatever. They're like, oh, Anthony Hawk, like Tony Hawk. And he's like,
yeah, that's me.
And then the guy's like, I wonder what that guy's up to these days. And he just goes, this right now.
Right now, I'm getting on a plane. I
He's
will say
also
this.
enormously tall. How do you not
How do you not
notice
know?
this?
Well, he's old enough now that I think they don't recognize him compared to his old publicity.
That's what I was going to say, is if you've seen him lately, he has aged a lot in like the last 5 years.
He had another story about being at a pool where everybody was a skate park or something. Everybody was skating.
He still skates every day.
Yeah, but he was watching, and one of the younger kids is just was like, oh, you skate? and he's like, yeah, a little bit.
I invented it. I mean, he basically invented modern skateboarding.
And he just he tells stories sometimes just like screwing with people that like don't recognize him and like oh, the old guy thinks he can skateboard, and he's just like, I'll try it. You know, and he just does crazy shit, and it's like, oh, who is this guy?
Oh yeah, he's still really good, but he has aged a lot. So I could see where, you know, most people think of Tony Hawk. Most people probably honestly think of the box art of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
I mean, my mental image of him is definitely more like about 40.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's much older than that now. So yeah, it's I'm excited about this. We'll see how it all shakes out, but I don't think we're going to have to wait much longer to hear more on it. So I'm pretty excited. I think in June there's 3 events now, like IGN, Games Radar, Jeff Keighley. There's 3 different events now in June.
Well, Keighley's thing is like
goes all summer. Yeah,
it's like the
and there was another one just
the new kind of music festival.
Yeah, and there was another one just announced recently to cover what was it? Cyberpunk in a couple months.
I think that's actually part of his thing.
That's Keighley's thing, I think. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Like Keighley's thing is a giant umbrella.
It's basically like Vincent put it best in the blurb for it. It's like a Google Calendar for video games.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that was a good blurb. But anyway, so it's almost looking like June is going to be just as good as June usually is, because there's just all these events popping up. Everyone had to hit milestones for E3 a while ago. Like, they have the builds. Like, why not do something with them?
And I gotta wonder now that I Am 8-Bit has announced that they are part of Keighley's thing. I wonder if that, I mean, even before the virus shut down everything, if they backed out of E3 because they knew that Keighley was doing this other thing, and that seemed like a more promising project than putting up with ESA for another 4 months.
Yep. Justin Horman just gifted a sub to Mike's Q. Thanks, Justin. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about, this is like the retro episode, man. We're going back again with this next topic. We're going to talk about Streets of Rage 4. This whole week for me, I have really enjoyed this week, I just want to say. Production-wise, like for content, it was like a nightmare. I had so much crazy crap happen, like in producing like my Sifted HQ stuff and a bunch of other things. But personally, I really enjoyed this week because I really took a step back. Just searching for my N64 was such a rewarding and fun experience because I was digging through all these old crates of stuff, of all my old gaming stuff. And so it just totally took me back. I felt like I was living in like 1997 to like 2002 again. I don't even know how to put it into words. It just warped me back to those times. And then on top of that, I was playing Streets of Rage 4. And it also took me way back to the days where I was so little I could hardly see over the top of the arcade cabinet to play these games. The game has been getting like gigantic review scores. Matt, what are your impressions of Streets of Rage 4?
My impressions are that all the review scores are accurate.
Okay.
I'm a big Streets of Rage fan. I love that game since back in the first one came out in the Genesis. I like beat 'em ups. You know, they're cousins to fighting games. Final Fight even takes place in the same universe as Street Fighter. But I loved Streets of Rage back in the day because it was made for consoles at home. It had a little more depth and a little more meat on its bones than sort of a quarter muncher beat 'em up like Final Fight. Or all the stuff Capcom made, which I love, but they're not Streets of Rage.
They're evil.
Streets of Rage.
I mean, they're designed to let you only play a minute at a time.
Streets of Rage is the pinnacle of the genre to me.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, this is my favorite beat 'em up.
And this game, I mean, I played that. I played the fan remake that mashed all 3 of them up and did all the random stuff. You know, that's a great. If you can find the Streets of Rage remix that was made like 10 years ago or so, that's really good and worth playing. This is possibly the best retro sequel of all time. It feels like Streets of Rage.
That's a big statement.
But they tweaked it enough that it's new. Like, they changed a little bit how it plays, so it plays like a new game, but it still feels like Streets of Rage.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would go that far in terms of what they added to what you can do with the juggling. Yeah. And the interaction between 2 players, and like it doesn't they've solved kind of the stiffness that the old Streets of Rage games had, and there's a little more free form to how you can deal with stuff, but it still feels like Streets of Rage.
It does. I have a feeling a lot of people are being introduced to something you and I have been familiar with for a very long time. Right now they are. Mm-hmm. And I think they may be wondering what the hell are people like Matt and Shane thinking. I enjoyed playing this game. I have problems seeing, younger players enjoying this game.
I mean, people do play these. I mean, there's a lot of games that are cousins to this that younger kids enjoy, and certainly there's a younger. Like, I think a lot of the millennials I know have a lot of fond memories of the Scott Pilgrim game.
Yeah,
which was the same genre, and was
a little less rigid than this, though.
Less rigid, but yeah, still recognizable, and especially in terms of length and kind of combo style. Also, a decade old this year.
Yeah,
that game. Wow.
It's playing this game or this genre in general. It requires a different kind of skill because you're dealing with just a 2D plane and there's really no deviation. So you have to be on that same plane with an enemy in order to strike, to land a blow. And so it's this very weird thing where you're circling like around each other, trying to find, particularly the boss fights, trying to find that one perfect angle where you can come in and like land your first blow and then go into your combo and then maybe use your finisher after that. But I don't know if kids, man, are going to appreciate that all that much. It does feel very archaic still. I agree with you. It's if you're a Streets of Rage fan, it's excellent.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think kids like hitting things no matter what.
But there's so many other ways to do that in video games now that in all honesty is a lot better.
It doesn't matter. It's fun.
It is very, but the combat is very, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just very rudimentary. You have one combo.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think you're playing it right then. It's more like a fighting game than almost any game in this genre I've played except maybe Scott Pilgrim.
Well, there is a fighting game mode in this. There's a multiplayer mode where you can actually fight other players head to head.
And so people are finding crazy shit in that thing. Like there's full like not infinite combos, but people have found some combos with the Guitar Girl that like you're dead. Like it's a 25 hit combo and you're dead. Like using the juggling in this is completely unlike any other game of this genre I've seen. It's like there's other games that have done it, but the fluidity that this one has for it is amazing. And the fact that they pulled that out of Streets of Rage and still feels like Streets of Rage, even with that fluidity, is impressive to me.
No, I'm impressed with the game. I just don't think it's going to appeal to a lot of people, to be honest with you. I think it'll appeal to us.
I think you'll be surprised because I think having fun hitting things with pretty graphics is a universal appeal.
Well, the presentation
you got to find it. The problem is you got to find it first. It hasn't been particularly prominent, I don't think, in like the console store. Like I haven't seen it. I had to go look for it basically.
Yeah,
as opposed to although it is on Game Pass. So like if you have Game Pass, what you got to lose?
Like if you play online, I mean, I'm okay at it. I have uncovered that depth that you're talking about, but a lot of the game is context sensitive or random as to whether you're going to grab or not, as to whether you're going to land a blow or not. I think grab is B or circle.
Grab is go near the guy. Just like
it seems like if I tap B or circle on the PlayStation controller, they'll grab. But then sometimes they grab all on their own. Like it.
Well, yeah, because grab is just go near a guy.
That's
like
so
how you
weird.
grab a guy. That's how it's always been.
I know, but
that's you maneuver around a guy, come down from the top, and then you got the grab, and then you can do whatever you want with it.
I know.
Although are you playing the big guy?
I've played everybody.
Because like the big guy has grabs, like command grabs. So that's
like his most of his powerful moves are tied into his grabs, and he pulls you in and like shocks you or whatever.
He can do some crazy combo stuff.
He can, yeah. But I've played with like some other players who are like way better than me, like because you can just look at their score and see how much they played the game, and I don't see them doing anything that I'm not aware of as far as how the gameplay works. Like,
well, you don't really need to against the CPU, but there's a lot there if you want to style with it.
Yeah.
And I think they nailed the music. The music has always kind of been a defining thing of Streets of Rage.
It's like old but new. Somehow they've managed to do it. You're right. Like they really did nail it.
And graphics, I think, are really good. I love all the sprite work. The thing I'm most impressed by, and this is actually in XCOM Chimera too, which we'll get to, using. Like, especially with the neon lights in this game, they reflect and light up the sprites.
Yeah.
Like if you stand next to a neon sign in this game, your 2D hand animated sprite will light up with the proper lighting from the neon sign. And I think that's really neat. And they do that in the cutscenes of XCOM Chimera as well.
Yeah, I think the animation could use some work. Some of those attacks, like if you and look, some of it I can't tell if they're just trying to make it just like the old games. Like when you use like a bat, it's this weird thing where you have your arm completely extended and the bat completely extended, and you're just like chopping like this, like.
Yeah, well, that depends on which character it is. Like,
yeah,
some characters use bats better than others. Some characters use the lead pipe better than others.
And that is one thing the game does do is like every character uses a knife differently. Like some characters will have like a 3-hit combo with the knife. Some won't.
Blaze is deadly with a knife, but like
she also carries it like this, like backwards or whatever. Yeah.
She has like a 3-hit combo and then can like throw it out separately.
Yeah.
Like, she's really great with it, but she's pretty bad with a lead pipe.
So yeah, exactly. Out. So look, I like the game. I'm having fun with it, but we have our audience really runs the gamut, and I would struggle to recommend this for anyone. I don't know. It's hard to not let nostalgia affect my opinion on stuff like this, because it's like I said, digging out my N64, I had this like glow around me for like the whole week. This retro glow. It's a thing. It's real. And I have that same glow for old arcade games. So I even feel like maybe I'm being a little too generous in my assessment of this game. But I
don't think so. Like, I don't have a big nostalgia problem. Like, I don't really have a rose-colored glasses problem with old entertainment products. I have it with like experiences we had. Like you want to talk about G4 days, I'll have some nostalgia goggles on our things we did.
Yeah.
But I don't really have that for old stuff. And I can say that with extra authority, having booted up that original Xbox this week, because like a bunch of the stuff I'm like, I want to play that again. Because some stuff just hasn't moved forward off the original Xbox. It's strapped there. It hasn't become backwards compatible. Nobody's done a remaster. So I played a few of those things this week. And a bunch of that shit sucks. Like that shit is not as good as I remember. Like I was like, Pirates Legend of the Black Cat. I don't have the PS2 version. So I'm like, I'll play Pirates Legend of the Black Cat. I used to love that game. And I played it. And like an hour later, I'm like, nope, that's not working anymore. Although I did enjoy seeing my last save, which was June 2003.
Wow. That's crazy.
Stuff like that. And Wrath Unleashed, which was never good, but was even worse than I remembered. So I don't feel like I have that too much of a problem with that kind of thing. And I think this is if you are willing to play a beat 'em up these days, much the same way as like kind of like the modern Mega Man games. Like if you look at that and aren't instantly repulsed, this is the best example of that genre on modern systems. Yeah. So I can't, until they bring back Scott Pilgrim, which is also one of the pinnacles of that genre, but is trapped in licensing hell. This is about as good as it gets. And I think it's probably better than the old games.
It is. It definitely is. No doubt about it.
I think Streets of Rage 2 still has a better soundtrack, but although this one has the classic soundtrack if you want to switch to it. So
it also has classic pixelated characters. You can play the game in a pixelized mode. One thing I will say though, and maybe this is
it's longer than any of the other games.
Yeah, but that actually feeds into what I was about to say, and that is that you can get everything out of this game in like a day. Because one thing about it is, and I like this about it, I'm not trying to criticize it for it, is that if you go online, it doesn't matter how far you've played yourself in the single player option. You can go online and look at the lobbies and you can play any stage you want. And so you don't have to like play through and get to level 4. You can join someone who's playing level 12 if you've only made it to level 2 on your own. And so doing that, you can jump around and play the whole game in literally like 2 hours. I hate to say it, but it's like you may not beat all the bosses. You may fail some of the missions, but you can play every stage in a couple hours and play, for the most part, like 80 to 90% of those stages. So it's a game that you can pretty much squeeze, for the most part, in like a day. Now, like you mentioned, it's on Game Pass right now, and you can get Game Pass for cheap, so you can get the game for cheap. It retails for $25, and that's right on the edge for me.
25 is a lot. 20 would be more reasonable.
20 to me is a sweet spot for this. Yeah. 25 is a little much for me because I literally played it for a day and I really don't have any interest in going back.
I will definitely play it again.
Yeah.
I will go back to this game a lot, I think.
Oh, okay. The presentation, I mean, the in-game visuals look great, as Matt mentioned, but like there aren't really cinematics. They're just stills with text. It's an indie game, basically, with Streets of Rage, with the license. So just keep that in mind. For most people, I think you're going to play it for a day or two, and you'll probably feel like, okay, I've played the whole thing. So keep that in mind if you're going to pay the full $25 for it. I would be more comfortable.
I mean, ideally, Game Pass.
Yeah, that's what you should do. But not everyone has a PC or an Xbox, so
no. But I'd say ideally Game Pass, or if you're stuck with PS4 on it, I can't imagine it won't get a sale for $20 in like 3 months.
Yeah.
Or just cough up an extra $5. I don't know. But I don't know. It's such a drought right now that maybe you could justify $25 for just a really good beat 'em up retro title.
Yeah.
There's not much else coming until Xenoblade, really. Or I'm interested in Maneater, but I think that game's going to be terrible. It's just going to be awesome, but terrible.
I think the best news though is that Streets of Rage is back. So they've done a really good job on 4. It seems to be doing well. I would not agree with the review scores on this. I would not give it anywhere near the scores that it's getting. Not to say they're wrong, just my personal experience with the game. I would not give it that high of a score. But the fact of the matter is, it is getting that high of a score. So the likelihood of a sequel is probably about 100% at this point. So I'm very happy that the franchise is back and it's in a form that I want to consume. And now that
Sega doesn't always bring things back well. So it's good to see them really nailing this old franchise that has not had an entry since the mid 90s. Let's not forget. It had a couple of there's been a couple of canceled Streets of Rage 4 attempts over the years. So that they got this out finally and it turned out to be great is shocking and pleasing. I hope that it encourages them to kind of keep moving forward on kind of bringing back some of their classic franchises with new spins on them, because they got a lot of stuff in that back catalog just is not being used.
Yep, for sure. I'll say this. I was pleasantly surprised by it. So, and of course that way.
A new Panzer Dragoon, you dicks.
Exactly. Or just remakes Saga. Money in the bank. Money in the bank.
Saga, or like give me, I don't know, remaster of Revenge of Shinobi, or
what about Shinobi in general? Like, where the hell is it?
Do remasters of the PS2 Shinobi and Kunoichi or Nightshade. Those are great games.
Yeah. When I was digging out my N64, I also found like a bunch of Dreamcast stuff. I was literally on like retro cloud 9 for like 5 days straight. It's crazy how that stuff can affect you. All these memories just start rushing back, and I started thinking, like I said, about Ryan Davis, and you know where that goes.
Yeah. There's also the pleasant surprise when the 20-year-old hardware still works.
I know. Yeah, it turned right on.
You finally get it to talk to your modern television, and it all comes up, and you're like, oh, it looks pretty good. That's all right.
Like, my N64 still works like a charm, man. It's crazy. So, that's what happens, though, when you don't have movable parts. It's just a switch. That's it.
I think the last time I turned mine on would have been like 2015 when I did that Facebook show with Trisha Hirschberger. And I was just writing the whole thing at that point. I was like, I'm putting Rocket Robot on wheels in the next one. I'm just telling you that. I'm not asking. I'm just saying we're putting that in. So I had to figure out. I ordered like a box that converted N64 to HDMI and did all this, and like got a separate cable that was like a custom thing that did like components. So just every little bit of better visual quality I could get out of it to capture it, like made all the difference. Because if you just did it through the composite cables, Rocket from Robot on Wheels was just like a red smear. Like you couldn't tell what the hell you were looking at, because it's just was never meant to be seen in 1080p.
Yeah, but I actually go through what I use to capture the N64 in Sifted HQ. I found a very cheap solution, and it's like $20-$30. You can get it on eBay. If you want to stream or capture retro consoles, check out HQ and you can see what it is.
It's probably very similar to the box I use for it. It looks surprisingly good.
Yeah, this one that I use has an S-video input, which I was surprised by, which is a big deal for N64.
I wonder if I might have that. Can't remember. It's still in the drawer over there, but I haven't looked at it.
It's called like a Dazzle or something. It's like made to record like VHS tapes to your computer, but it works for gaming consoles. Yeah, I
have something like that for my Saturn.
Yep. For like $30, and you can start streaming and play and recording your retro stuff. So anyway, let's move on. We said earlier that this is the retro strategic episode, and we're going to continue in the strategy vein. We're going to talk about XCOM Chimera Squad. It is so weird that this genre, turn-based strategy, it just disappears for like sometimes over a year at a time. And now in the span of like a week, we have this. We have Gears Tactics. We have John Wick Hex coming to consoles.
And this one, like, practically shadow dropped. Like,
and for $10. I mean, XCOM is the leader of this genre. It launched for $10 the first week. I don't know. I think it's now 20.
It's 20. So, yeah, it's standard 20, but
so it's still cheap. Is there a reason it's cheap, Matt?
I mean, I think because it's not what you would consider a full-fledged XCOM game.
So it's not. It's not like a legit. That's why it's not XCOM 3.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not a global war against the Advent anymore. It's not. It takes place after 2, in the aftermath of defeating the Elders of the Advent, and so you've liberated like a lot of the soldiers that the aliens that were serving as the Advent as your enemies in the first game. Now it's been like 5 years, I think, and like basically humanity and aliens are all living together. So like the Chimera Squad is a squad put together of basically XCOM veterans and aliens. So you start with a hybrid human alien hybrid on your team, and
so they've been mating.
Well, no, because they're from XCOM, the other games where like the aliens were like creating basically clones in vats of human alien hybrids to be psychic because humans could be psychic.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So you've got like some people like that, and then like there's a full alien on your team at the beginning who is like with the psychic powers and the whole thing can do that thing where they make the battle madness where you make a guy berserk and he shoots his friend, which was so annoying when they'd use it on you and the other. And so the premise is that like you're all trying to work. You're sort of a test squad that like that's why you're called Chimera Squad, is because you're all the different alien races, and like your badge basically says like in Latin something like in diversity strength or something, because like you're trying to prove that everybody can work together. And like when you're out in the field, like you'll see like it's funny because like it's playing, the story does play on kind of the prejudices that people have against the aliens or like all that kind of thing, like there's obviously fringe groups that think that the aliens are up to something, or
so it's like Detroit Become Human, except
sorta
the robots,
except
for the aliens.
It's just like, oh, they don't trust aliens because they're not humans. Humanity first stuff. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound familiar. And like, so like, but there's been moments where I've been out like in missions, and like you're fighting like terrorist squads that show up or whatever, and you're in the street and there's like civilians running around, and like presumably you don't want to shoot them or let people get shot. But like at one point early on, there was people running around, but then there's a one of the snake people is there. And I was like, oh shit, and I hate those snake people in the old game. But then I realized it's just like a pedestrian. Like he's just trying to get away. And I was like, oh, you're not going to hurt me. Okay. So even the snake people are our friends now in this brave new world. And you go to this place called City 31. And it all takes place in this one city. And other than that, it is very similar to X. So you don't have like the Avenger flying around the world doing all the global stuff, but you do have like a big city map, and like you're kind of you're working independently, but you can work with the cops, and like you're trying to like hunt down all these factions that are maybe caused, because the first mission is you go in and you're supposed to rescue someone from the XCOM War Museum, and they've held the mayor hostage. The mayor is a hybrid alien. And you rescue her, and she's like, thanks for the assist. We got to figure this out. And they go, you take her out, and then you turn her over to the city police, and they put her in a van to take her away, and the van blows up and she dies. And so after that, they're like, okay, the city's something's wrong here. Like, so we got to find out what happened, or what why they were waiting for us, and how come they managed to like circumvent us like that. And so like the very beginning is you have all these things you can do to sort of like talk to the police and sort of do little odd job things. But your focus is there's 3 groups factions you want to investigate. And you have to pick one faction to investigate first. And then like you go on. So I've investigated one faction, and there's the 3 factions, if I remember right. The one I'm investigating are basically like a religion. It's like a religion that has sprung up around like the alien stuff. And then there's one of a bunch of psychics who think that psychics should rule the world. and I think an alien.
And
tech.
shouldn't they know whether they're ultimately going to rule the world or not?
I mean, this XCOM psychics aren't foresight so much as like can mind blast you, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
More like a Professor X thing.
Yeah. I was just joking.
And then I think there's like an alien tech like militia group. So I investigated the religion people, and so what that is that's basically a story chapter, and you have to like do missions that help you get clues to figure out who's kind of pulling the strings on the faction you're investigating, and then like it'll open up missions to sort of do like a midpoint investigation, and then that will lead you to the big boss of the faction. Then you have to kind of bust down their hideout and like deal with that. And I assume that all three of them are kind of like that, and they lead into the bigger story of sort of the conspiracy that's behind everything. And then meanwhile, there's side missions that pop up, and like they also take time for you to do. And you've got the armory where you upgrade everybody. You've got like intel missions that aren't like missions that you go out in a map. You just assign individual agents to them, and they go out and it takes 3 days or whatever, and they come back and bring you resources.
This is crazy, Matt. So it sounds like this is a full-on XCOM game. It doesn't.
It has all the elements.
Side mission.
It has all the elements. It's just not. It's not global. It's not like I think they did what they did with this because it's kind of feels like a reskin of XCOM 2. Like it's not. Like I wouldn't call
it. It's like DLC for XCOM.
Sorta, yeah. It's like a standalone campaign expansion would almost be how I describe it. So it's like you're gonna get your XCOM fix. But I certainly wouldn't call it XCOM 3 because it's not big enough.
Would you say
not in terms of
would
game
be a good term? Spin-off? Like call
sort of. I mean, it's the thing is like I think if you call something XCOM 3, I think you expect a bigger jump in tech and a bigger story. Not that the story in this isn't interesting, but it all takes place in one city and is about very specific things. And I think in XCOM 3 it would have to be a global war again. You know what I mean? Like XCOM. The new XCOMs have kind of established themselves as a very large scope thing, and this is a much more focused, smaller thing. Although it does have all the elements of the armory and the science research and developing new tech, and like everything that's in there is in there except you aren't building out your base. Like the way you built out the carrier and the other ones, like you aren't clearing debris and building new rooms and doing all that, but your base is sort of there for like different sections that you just do the basic stuff in them and recruit new agents. Like all the agents have names and bio, like 3-page bios and origins of where they came from, why they are the way they are, personalities. All the characters in the game refer to them by name, like they're all real characters. Like this sounds like an insult, but I don't mean it as one. It reminded me a little bit of Agents of Mayhem.
No.
In part because a lot of the colors are purple, but also because like how Agents of Mayhem did that thing where like you kind of had a squad and everybody had a code name. Everybody was a specific character and like everybody knew who they were. Like there was no randomized like, oh, this is just another soldier guy.
Yeah.
That's how this is. Like everyone I've recruited so far, and you have to pick between recruits. So like when you get the ability to recruit someone new, they give you 3 characters, and they're like pick one, and you can go through their bios and their skills and their abilities and their stats and everything. And like I've ended up picking them a couple times. I picked the first one I picked because I felt like I needed I need this class. I need this class. But the second time, I picked the character that I thought seemed like the most interesting character.
Interesting.
Not from a gameplay standpoint. I was just like, I want to see how people interact with this character.
Now, that is one area where XCOM, Chimera Squad, is better than Gears Tactics. Gears Tactics, you can tell a lot of your recruits are just randomly generated.
Yeah, there's a lot of grunts in that. And that's how XCOM's always been, too. XCOM's soldiers, for the most part, meant something to you because you got attached to these, walking guns that basically you used all the time and were very powerful and you had a lot of time invested in them and you didn't want to start over. And in this, that's still true, but it's doubly true because they're all named, they all have personalities, and they all behave certain ways. And their abilities tie in a lot often with how they act. So everybody feels like a more designed character now. And I think that's a really cool step forward that they've taken with this.
Now, Matt, a lot of people are going to have to decide between this game and Gears Tactics. As someone who has played both, can you provide some perspective on that?
I prefer Gears.
Okay.
And the reason is actually probably the reason people might choose the opposite, because I like Gears because Gears is simpler.
Okay.
Gears is simpler, it's more straightforward, and it's less reliant on random number god.
There's a lot less number crunching going on in Gears Tactics for sure.
Gears still has kind of the, sometimes you'll miss a shot you felt like you should get or whatever. But XCOM, everyone knows, 87% likelihood of landing a shot in XCOM doesn't mean shit. Like that's still 13%. 13% is not nothing. And there's been some things where I played a few missions on this where it was just like, should have been super simple. Everything was going well. So one guy missed one shot and everything just unraveled because the next thing, got a critical hit and everybody went down and I got back to base and everybody's got like permanent scars now because they do the thing where like if you're wounded even if you don't go down, like even if the soldier doesn't get killed and brought back, even if you just hurt a lot when you end the mission, they can come back with scars, which are like which give them like a permanent disadvantage. So like you can have like they got hit in the eye, so like their eyes are blurry now, so they lose some percentage on to hit or to crit. Or you got hurt in the leg. They got hurt in the leg, so like they have one less movement point, and you can heal that by taking them into like a training thing, but it takes them off the field for a couple of turns.
Oh, pro tip by the way for Gears Tactics: if you continue playing it, get a bunch of snipers and just max out their crit.
So noted.
Yep.
I've already had a couple missions where I'm like, ooh, getting somebody up in a tower or something really
makes a huge difference. Oh yeah, it's like 100% hit rate. If you're a sniper and you're higher than the enemy, 100%.
Yeah. The other big thing that I think the big change or addition in this one that wasn't in the old. So every mission in this game starts with a breach. And what a breach is in this is basically where you bust in through doors or an area or whatever. And the way it works is you have at least one breach point. A lot of times there's more than one, and each breach point will tell you this is how many people can be in this breach point. These are the advantages or disadvantages of this breach point. So someone will be like, anyone who goes to this breach point has +1 defense for the first turn when you come through, or maybe you have minus. It's like, so some breaches will be green, some will be red, and the red ones you're more likely to get shot when you go in. The first person in gets a +3 damage to their first shot. The last person in gets a plus 30% dodge or something. And so you have to choose your 4-man squad, like where you put them in each. You put them all in the one breach. You put them in 2 different ones, and they breach in. And it does kind of like that old Rainbow Six thing where everything's slow-mo, and you pick your targets. And some guys will be surprised, some guys will be ready for it, and you have to choose which ones. And there's obviously percentage, and then everybody gets a free shot. Basically, your whole squad gets free shots at everybody, and then anyone who wasn't surprised can fire back, and then your squad automatically takes cover at the closest cover they can find, and then the map starts, and you can have multiples of that in each mission. So like,
do you like it? Do you like the mechanic?
I do. It's fun. Like it feels kind of like a cool. Like it feels like you get a jump on them. It feels like you can get in there and jump in. And it also it makes it a little simpler in a way because once you jump in and you take your shots, your characters take their cover. And I feel like that solves one of my problems with XCOM, where a lot of times you'll drop me into the drop zone in XCOM and I don't know where to put my guys. Yeah, I'm like, I got to figure out where to go, and I don't know where anybody's going to come from.
The random spawning in Gears Tactics will drive you crazy too, because they'll just spawn like right behind your character. And I mean, sometimes you just die if they spawn a boomer 2 steps away from your character. Your character's dead. Yeah. Like that's all there is to it. So there's drawbacks.
It's a fun mechanic, and then like as you clear out a room, a lot of times you'll have to move on to the next room, and you get another breach with different parameters. So that happens pretty often. It's a pretty major factor in the game as you move forward. Especially the story missions tend to have multiples because a lot of times you're chasing somebody or clearing the place out, and there's a lot of breaching happening. And it's a nice way to kind of break up the turn-based tactics it feels action-based, but it's not. But it kind of has a nice little visceral feel to it.
Do you want that to continue over to the mainline XCOM games?
I would like to see it continue. Maybe not every mission.
Okay.
Because this squad is very specifically sort of a get in, blow the thing up, get out, rescue the. They're very special spec ops. They're very SWAT. The Chimera Squad. So I would like to see kind of that style of mission involved in going forward because I think it works very well. And like you get character out of it. there's character that comes out of it, because some of them like breaching and some of them don't, and like it's some of them's like, all right, everybody behind me, and the other's like, oh god, here we go again, kind of thing. The amount of character they've managed to insert into this is actually probably the biggest leap, I think, for the franchise, because the old games relied so much on you bringing your own attachment to your soldiers, and this one made, I mean, I guess you run the hazard of making soldiers that people don't like.
Yeah.
But there aren't any characters I dislike so far.
Okay, so you said you like Gears Tactics better.
Yeah.
But which should somebody purchase if they don't want to?
If you're a hardcore turn-based strategy fan, I think you want XCOM, because
it's also cheaper, right? It's $20. Yeah.
Minus the Game Pass thing. Yeah, it's cheaper and it's more in depth, I would say, and it does. So like the one thing I did forget is that Gears definitely doesn't have is the story. So the city map, as you got story missions over here, investigation missions, emergencies will pop up. You got to deal with immediately, or shit goes really bad, and side missions. And the thing is, you pick a mission and do it, but everything you don't do raises like a chaos meter on each section of the city it's in. So eventually, sections of the city that you're not paying attention to will get like kind of unrest will grow to the point that you have to deal with that. So it has that Doom track element that XCOM 2 had, where you are still, even if you're succeeding on an individual mission basis, you are still sort of juggling disaster at all times. I find that really irritating. Like, I know that like that's sort of the point. Like, people love kind of living on the ragged edge of disaster in these games. It's sort of like the appeal to some degree, but I find it irritating.
And that's definitely way more prevalent in XCOM than it is in Gears Tactics. Sure. Yeah, without a doubt.
And there have been a couple times with this game where something happened in a mission where like the RNG didn't go my way and it all just fell apart. And instead of redoing the 20-minute mission, I just turned it off.
Yep, that happens.
And I've always gone back to it, to be fair. Like, I come back to it, but like a couple times I have switched over to Gears Tactics because I know Gears Tactics is not going to screw me like that.
Yep.
And yeah, some things go real wrong in Gears Tactics periodically, but
XCOM's a whole other story.
Thing. And even if you get out of the bad situation in XCOM, your guys are probably hurt. And
on down the line, you keep getting punished. That's the other thing. Like in Gears, it's not so much. Like a guy can get injured and he may sit out a mission, but he's never gone for good. And he has to take a lot of damage before he would sit out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably. I mean, a lot of my preference for Gears comes, like I said, Gears is simpler, and when it comes to these kind of the turn-based strategy stuff, I am mildly simple-minded about it, and I would prefer not to have to like juggle 14 different things, and I'd rather just sort of do a turn-based mission and not have to worry about coming back and like doing all the paperwork for shit, or like or I have the thing where it's like, okay, well, if the city's going to burn if we don't do more than one thing at once, why don't we do more than one thing at once? Like, it's like we got like 12 people. Why don't we just go 3 different places? And maybe that does come along later on. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not far enough in the game to say that. It does feel like it's going to be a pretty big, even though it doesn't feel like XCOM 3, it does feel like it's going to be as big as your standard XCOM game in terms of mission count and sort of, the city's got a lot of stuff going on. So I can see how that would be a thing. But for me, I just feel like Gears is a more simple, straightforward game of this type, and that is more what I'm into at this point. I just find XCOM really stressful.
Yeah.
To be honest, and if you prefer that, then yes, absolutely buy XCOM because it's cheaper and it's more what you're after. But I'm not very good at turn-based strategy stuff, frankly, and so I prefer the easier game, which I think is Gears.
Cinetike asks in the chat, Chimera Squad excels with the different squad members and abilities. Chaining and comboing the different squad members is very satisfying. Does Gears also have that kind of feeling of synergy? It does, in fact. I talked about it in last week's episode, how you can basically, when you execute an enemy, it gives moves to your other party members. So you can have an execution, it adds a point that you can then use that point to execute another enemy, which gives you a point. It turns into this daisy chain. And then also you end up having units that have abilities where, say you're a sniper and you have an ability where if you land a shot, that specific shot, it will give you 3 more actions or will give another person in your party extra actions to use. So yeah, there's absolutely that whole team-based mechanics, synergy, daisy chaining that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's 2 different approaches. Like Gears, the way Gears does it feels a little more organic, And I like actually Gears, the way that you can add action points to your squad as you do like the chainsaw kills and stuff. Like, this might be a real obscure reference, but it reminds me of Dynasty Tactics. Do you remember that? The Dynasty Warriors Tactics.
I remember the game. I don't remember what the game was like though.
The way it worked is like your units were like groups of squads led by like a named general sort of thing. And if you did the attacks right, you flanked right, like your other allies got free turns that could follow up your turn. So it was almost like when you get like a good move in like columns or like a puzzle game, and it just like cascades down.
Yeah.
It was like that. And sometimes Gears, when you get like a couple of good like chainsaw kills that just let your guys get free moves for like a longer than you feel should be fair, almost like that feels really good.
Yeah, you can like accomplish things you didn't think you could. So like a lot of times enemies will spawn, and they'll spawn like groups of 5 or 6 like all over the map. And when you first see it, you're like, oh God. But then they rush in and you actually start taking them on, and you're like, I wiped them all out in like a turn. So it's the game
does a good job of making it feel like you did that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you made a good choice, and so you got rewarded for that. Like Gears is very good about that. XCOM, it's not as automatic. The main thing, and I do like this mechanic, it's just not prevalent to the degree Gears is. You have a team up like move in XCOM that you can use once per mission. That basically the character you're on, you pick it, and then you pick another character on your team to be the team up target. And that other character gets moved up the turn chain to go right after the character you are right now.
Yeah.
So basically, you get a free second turn. If it's useful if like this one guy is going to massacre us in the next turn. If we don't take him out, I don't have the firepower to take him out. But if I team up with this other character who's way down the turn list, I will be able to take him out. So that's how I'm going to use this right now. So it's kind of a super move more than a normal game mechanic. But it works out.
Gears has that too. It has like those really powerful shots that you can select. If they land, they do a ton of damage. But if they miss, they'll wipe out like the rest of your actions. So there is some risk reward stuff there too.
So and that actually turn thing, like the XCOM game does have a lot more things you can use like once per mission or not as often, but they don't count as actions.
Okay.
Like you can kind of a free move almost. It's
kind of like Overwatch. A
little bit, and of course it still has Overwatch, and it uses actually the Overwatch in this works exactly the same as it doesn't work the same in the sense of like being able to move 3 times, but it works the same in the sense that you pick it and you choose the cone of vision. The same way that Gears does. It's I mean, it looks good. It also does the thing like I think it's brighter than the old XCOM games. Like
the B-roll it looks brighter
because you're in a functioning city. You're not like in like war-torn invasion places and stuff. And everybody like has like bright colors on their uniforms, and like there's a lot of banter between the characters. Like it's not the oppressive sort of like trudging towards the apocalypse game that the XCOM 1 and 2 are. It's got a little more optimism to it, which I kind of like. It's a nice break from the usual sort of like fighting for your life element of
in everyone
XCOM.
Else's life. Yeah.
It feels like the world of XCOM kind of turned a corner, and there's some hope there, but you just got to deal with some shit first.
Okay.
So I really like it. I just don't like it as much as Gears because I feel like Gears is more my speed. In terms of this genre, and I'm not very good at this genre. So I'm liking XCOM, but I find it frustrating in a way that Gears isn't. So I would pick Gears, but if you love XCOM and aren't frustrated by XCOM, or the frustration of XCOM is why you like XCOM, I think possible. Chimera Squad is more of the same with some improvements. So I think, if you're an XCOM fan, it's an insta buy. You should have it right now. You should be playing it right now while you're listening to me.
And they probably are.
Yeah.
All right.
Otherwise, you're paying an extra $10 now. So what did you do?
That's true. You're sleeping. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about a story we addressed last week, but there have been new developments over the last 7 days. Last week, we talked about how Naughty Dog had basically almost the entirety of The Last of Us Part 2 leaked. At the very least, some of the most pivotal moments from the game were leaked. I talked about how I saw things I can't unsee now, and I wish that I could. And at that point in time, the reports suggested that it had been kind of an inside job, that someone who worked with Naughty Dog in some capacity was disgruntled, did not like the work culture at Naughty Dog, and therefore decided to take it out on Naughty Dog by releasing all this damaging information about The Last of Us Part 2. Well, as it turns out, that was not the case. It was an outside job. It was not someone who worked with Naughty Dog or Sony. It was just hackers who somehow found an exploit in Naughty Dog's networking structure from Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4 patch.
Yeah, they found some kind of a way in, some kind of a hook that got them into Naughty Dog's network, and they just went in there and just took whatever they wanted.
Like, that's on one hand it's terrible and stupid that you do that to people looking forward to the game and the people who worked in the game. On the other hand, like, a little bit of respect there, like, for like finding, like, how, like, what, like, who was, what are you doing, like, looking for that shit, and that, who would ever think to do
and
that?
And to what end?
To this end, I'm sure.
But I mean, nobody even knows who they are. They may eventually, if they actually get arrested, which is possible. But to what end? Nobody knows it was you. You're gonna gain nothing from doing it.
What they gained is watching people freak out about it.
Oh, I forgot that there are a lot of people who delight in others' pain. I always forget that.
We did a whole ongoing segment about that with the griefer.
Yeah, that's right. We did. We had a griefer segment on X-Play. I should have remembered. But I just don't want to believe that there are people like that. But the sad truth is that there are. And, you know, maybe... You know, the lower third for the topic last week was karma ? Well, after this news broke, then, of course, a couple people came after us on YouTube and on Twitter, you know, because they only saw the thumbnail and, you know, a question mark doesn't mean anything to them. So they were pissed off that we had said that Naughty Dog deserved it, which we never said at all. That was just something that we were wondering aloud is, you know, is this retribution for the way Naughty Dog runs its business?
Yeah, not like deserved, but sort of consequences.
Right. I mean, so it's exactly. It's cause and effect, you know? So how do you feel about this, Matt? Like,
I mean, it still sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you know, what do you expect? People are dicks. Like, there's no other way around it.
Yeah, I think you brought this up last week when we talked about it. You said that, you know, I don't necessarily feel bad for Naughty Dog. I feel bad for the people who work at Naughty Dog who've been working on this game for the last however long. And to have all that work just get put out there. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, and there was more today.
Oh, there was.
Including the ending.
Oh, my God. Really?
I still haven't seen any of it.
I mean, I'm guessing they have everything and they can just keep releasing it.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
But the more
I'm also curious if they have other things.
I'm sure they do.
Like future projects or something.
Right.
Who knows?
Things that right now, Naughty Dog is probably losing its mind. Because if they do have like prototypes of stuff that they've been working on, like the next game that they're working on is going to come after The Last of Us Part
All they
2.
need is to drop a couple of concept arts for whatever their next project is. That would be a disaster.
I mean, the thing about it is the leakers, every time they leak something, they're increasing their chances of getting arrested. And I will guarantee you that if somebody gets caught for this, Sony will throw the book at them. And, I mean, they're not going to let up. They're going to push it to the fullest extent of the law. And these people may go to prison. I mean, if they can figure out some kind of monetary value for it, that's the hard problem, though. It's like, how do you place a value on something like that? Because it's not going to keep it from selling. Could you even prove how many copies it kept it from selling? You really can't. You just wonder how you add a dollar value to something like that.
I don't know if you go for a dollar value. I think you just go for corporate espionage, and you know you don't even need a dollar value. You need it's a criminal act. So I think you go for jail time.
Yeah. And then you wonder, you know, the judges, the jury, if they're gonna listen to that and be like, really? You're going to put a guy in prison for that? Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think you can.
In this
because
bubble.
It doesn't matter.
It's just hacking. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you hacked. You hacked it. You stole company secrets from a secure location, and like that's illegal. Like there's no it doesn't matter if I think what the company makes is stupid. Like it's still, that's not part of the judgment as a jury member. You still have to say, yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. I don't know about some of the juries in this country.
Well,
man.
I mean, yeah, but I ostensibly,
you're talking about you. You can reason.
But you also get to screen a jury for exactly that reason.
That's true. And in some cases, they would put the idiots on the jury.
The defense would want that, but it's hard to stack a jury these days with more. I don't know what you do with that. Like trying to find someone who thinks it should be okay to spoil stories by stealing things from companies.
You could find somebody who hates video games or whatever.
That still doesn't make it relevant because it's just like it's not on trial for spoiling the game. It's on trial for stealing shit from their stuff.
No, but the point is like you're on the jury, somebody can do serious prison time for something. So you're like, okay, is this bad enough for someone to go to prison and possibly be like raped? Like seriously. When you're in a jury,
now you're talking about reforming the prison system because that's not part of the punishment there.
That's not a part of the official punishment. It's the unofficial punishment. But believe me, people think about that stuff. People know what jail's really like. So I don't know.
Someone who got thrown in jail for this though is probably not going to go to that prison.
Yeah. They're going to go to a country club, or they're just going to go to jail.
They're going to go where Martha Stewart went,
where there's tennis courts and crap like that.
Yeah,
what do you think should happen?
It's going to be patio time. I promise.
What kind of punishment do you think that they should get, Matt, or he or she? Who knows?
I think they should have computers taken away from them forever.
Forever.
That's what I would do. I'd be like, no more electronics. You're done.
Ever. That would be hard to enforce.
Be very hard to enforce.
But the reason I was talking about monetary damages is because to me, the monetary part of it could be far more damaging. Because like you said, they're probably not going to prison. If they do get any time, they're going to go to a county jail or something. They're not going to go to the big house. They'll do their 8 months or whatever in a county jail and play chess for a few months, and then they'll get out. But the monetary part of it is something that will last forever. So if you can, sure, he gets 6 months of jail time. But what if he has $3 million of reparations and they're going to garnish his wages until it's paid off? That is far more effective than someone going to jail and playing checkers for a couple months. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the punitive financial thing would be for that. I don't know. It depends what you charge them with. And you can do both. You can fine them and send them to jail. Whatever,
you can do a criminal case and then a civil case as well.
And they can carry both penalties. It depends what you think someone should do. It depends what Sony wants to go after them for. I don't know. I don't know the legality of it. I don't know what they charge them with. It depends what the charges are. It depends how they got in. It depends what else they got. It depends how they went about it. And
I mean, just based upon what we've seen so far, it's pretty bad.
Pretty bad, but there's more to it. Did they not just steal materials? Did they steal concept art and stuff? But they also steal employee information. An engine. And I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about employee information.
Yeah.
Payroll stuff. There's stuff in there that you can get that is a breach of identity theft that goes beyond just taking proprietary content. Because I know it's easy to focus on the spoiler stuff because we're focused on being people who play games, but the real criminal act here is taking the thing, and the other things they took might be even more concerning than taking a bunch of game story spoilers. It could be everyone at Naughty Dog's social security number is out there now. We don't, it could be way worse depending on how Naughty Dog stores its information and what that vulnerability gave the hackers access to.
Well, we have something going on in our chat right now where people are afraid that someone in the chat is going to start spoiling stuff for the game. That's something I never...
He's just starting to mention just his thoughts on the ending because he saw it. But he hasn't mentioned any plot point of the ending. But I just would say, please don't spoil it for the people in chat.
Yeah, don't do that, man. We'll ban you for life. I'm not kidding. If you come in and you start putting spoilers in our chat, we'll ban you from our chat forever. Bottom line, no warnings, no anything. There's your warning. You do it, you'll never chat in one of our streams again. So there you go. The gauntlet has been laid down, and we have moderators in chat every stream. And if you do it, we're gonna get you. So there you go. Mitch, what's your take on all this insanity? By the way,
I'll admit about probably until Matt mentioned that more stuff has come out, I was thinking this was maybe Sony lying a little bit just to maybe
so they
hide
didn't have
the
egg
PR
on their
move.
face to look
Yeah.
like they weren't like protecting their stuff. That's a good point.
That
Yeah.
/ also maybe because the story of the disgruntled employee was probably true and they just didn't want that to be the story. So, but now that it's came out, like it's definitely probably true. So I just think it's unfortunate, and obviously the person should face consequences because that's serious. Like that's.
Well, and
that's
sure, I
not
mean,
okay.
their original statement kind of made it's like, oh, they're not affiliated with Sony or Naughty Dog, and I still thought, well, technically, a contractor is not
That's
affiliated.
true. That's a good point too,
But
Matt.
then Schreier actually did ask them, what
Yeah.
about that? And they said, no, the person who did this has never worked for us, has never been a contractor, has never had any relation to Sony or Naughty Dog ever.
Because the other thing I was thinking was in regards to it was because of the person wasn't connected to them in any capacity. Oh my gosh, I just lost my thought. Keep going. If I think of my thought, I'll come back to it. I don't know why I just totally blanked on it. Holy
We
cow.
are saying that if they weren't connected to them in any way, then sometimes that jogs your memory, but not this time, I guess.
Oh, no, it's something completely different. It's Neil Druckmann. Like, they've said almost nothing except for that blank statement. And he did say some stuff, though, recently with it going gold. I did watch his video of him talking about...
Yeah, it went gold today, by the way, folks, so no more delays.
Yeah, it went gold. And then he also did throw a little bit of info saying, like, hey, no matter what you've read or what you've seen, experience in the game is totally different than what you've actually read.
So they could have found old cinematics. Naughty Dog could have changed what happened.
I think what they're saying there is like it's different when you see it in context and with the whole story playing out in front of you. That's what they're
Yeah,
trying
he
to
said
say.
immersion was the thing that makes it important.
That's okay. Well, whatever. It's just damage control. That's pretty much all that is.
Yeah, but it's also true.
Yeah.
Like if the way you told the story didn't matter, then all stories would be the same.
Yep, that's true. Yep. Well, who is it that said? Is it Shakespeare that said there's only 4 stories?
Shakespeare, we don't have any record of what he thought about anything really beyond his writings. But that it is kind of said there's like basically 3 stories. There's man versus nature, man versus himself, and man versus man.
Yeah.
And yeah, Shakespeare had.
Who said that? Somebody coined that phrase the first time, though.
I can't remember who said that. It's a more recent thing, though. Shakespeare wouldn't have thought of things like that. They didn't think about story that way. They also didn't think about spoilers.
Nope. They definitely
No one
didn't.
has seen a Shakespeare play since he wrote them without knowing how they ended. Because
That's true. That's
it's
a
a
good...
tragedy. Everybody dies. It's a comedy. Everybody gets married. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
It really is interesting to me that like the spoiler thing, the idea of spoilers and spoiler culture around the idea of like any information about the story, that's the last 20 years. Like that is an extraordinarily recent development.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when I was growing up, no one talked about. I mean, people would say like, "Don't tell me how it ends." Like if you're talking about like a mystery story or something like that. But no one freaked out about finding out who was cast as whatever, or that this thing happens in the first 5 minutes or anything like that. Like spoiler stuff like that only arose in the late 90s when places like Ain't It Cool News turned it into something.
Yeah.
And also the rise of recording, like digital recording, where like not everybody was watching the same thing at the same time anymore because of broadcasting. Like you know, it used to be that everybody saw the same show the night before and came back to school or work and talked about it the next day.
Yep.
Now everybody's got their own viewing schedule. And you can't know who saw what, and like nobody can talk about anything anymore. So yeah, that is a very recent thing.
Yeah, and I also think the purview of information definitely contributes to that because now people know more about stuff or can learn more about stuff than they could ever learn before. Like, the actor or, there's an uncredited person that's playing a role. Let's speculate.
Yeah, that's what I meant by Ain't It Cool News is like that kind of reporting on the production process changed how much information you had access to. And that also like before the internet was prevalent, it's a lot easier on the internet to just accidentally see a paragraph that includes the end of something in it, and you read it, because you can't not read something if you look at it, and like you're like, oh my god, that tweet told me the end of, it's like when in Harry Potter, when Half-Blood Prince came out, and people were just posting in all caps everywhere on the internet, Snape kills Dumbledore. That became, and also that is the same mentality as the people who did this. is they're just trying to ruin shit for people. Like, that's all it is. People thought it was funny to drive by people in line buying the new Harry Potter book and yell the ending out the window at them. Like, some people are just that person.
I wonder why, though, people would want to be exposed to the spoilers. No, obviously there are message boards all over the internet that have threads that have all the information, the videos, the screenshots, and everything I've seen. They've been very good about warning people. But if you look at those threads, there are thousands and thousands of comments. What would make somebody want to know this stuff before they play the game? That's my question.
A lot of people don't care. I don't care.
You mean they're just not going to play it?
Or they don't care. They don't think spoilers ruin anything.
Oh, so you've already looked at all this stuff then?
I haven't looked at any of it because I don't seek stuff out. But if somebody sprang it on me, I wouldn't care. But my sister looks up the exact plot of every movie she sees before she sees it. Every time. Like, that's just how she is.
I like those pleasant surprises when I'm in.
That's how she'd rather go into things knowing what they are.
I like surprises.
I'm surprised.
That's part of it. I mean, that's part of entertainment is being surprised.
It's part of it, but it's also not the point of it. So, like, I don't care.
I don't know what the point. The point of entertainment is to burn time. That's the point of entertainment.
But like, also, like, the point of stories is to share something and to kind of like get some message across, get some themes across. Like, that doesn't get robbed by knowing that like this one twist happens. Like, that otherwise nothing would have replay value or reviewing value.
Well, I would argue that a lot of games don't. So.
A lot of it doesn't. But like that's why when I say that I don't care about spoilers, especially plot spoilers, is like if knowing the plot ruins the story, it's not a very good story.
That's true. I mean, so that's true.
And a lot of stories aren't very good. It's true.
Most aren't, especially
like if you found out the spoilers to the end of Game of Thrones, that was ruined for you because there's nothing else other than that incredibly stupid plot. There was no other meat there to dig into. There's no reason to watch that again because there's nothing to dig into. But like, and I would argue that you're right. Like the majority of video games are their plot and not much more. Because that's just not the emphasis that games have. But some people just don't mind. Some people would rather go into it knowing things, I guess. When the Star Wars prequels are coming out, I saw episode 1, and episode 1 was what it was. And I read the novelizations and read all the production spoilers of episode 2 and 3 because I was never letting that happen again. Like, I was never going to go blind into a Star Wars movie again after that because I didn't want to get fooled again. And sure enough, I enjoyed the prequels more, in part because by the time I sat down in that theater to watch episode 2 and episode 3, I was ready for what was going to be in front of me.
Yeah.
I did not do that for Force Awakens or Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker because, well, after Rise of Skywalker, I might start doing that again. But it's, because I didn't feel like it was a thing I wanted to be prepared for. And also I'm older and I don't care that much. But at the same time, if someone like accidentally tells me how Last of Us ends in the next month or so, I am not going to be thrilled, but I'm also not going to be mad at them. I mean, I might tell.
I would be mad at them. I would be mad at them because they're just being a selfish jerk.
Either that, I mean,
there's no other reason to do it. I mean,
it's harder to say because like,
regardless of whether it bothers me and I care about the ending, they're just being a jerk.
Well, it's a weird example because obviously someone hasn't played it because it's not out yet. It's different. Yeah. It's different than something that's been out for like a year and someone says something about this thing that's been around for a year and you're like, oh my God, I haven't seen it yet. And I'm just like, well, you had a year, dude.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yeah,
I especially don't care. I especially don't care if someone is talking about something that's old and I just haven't gotten to it yet because that's on me.
Yeah, that's totally on me. I agree with that 100%. All right, let's move on to our last topic of episode 210. You guys knew it was coming from the moment the show started that our last topic was going to be Assassin's Creed Valhalla. A little anticlimactic. So I went back and looked on the site. And now that we have timestamps for all our content, it's a lot more functional for stuff like this. And I went and looked at when the first story we curated for this game mentioned that it was set in the Viking era, the Viking setting. And it was April 6th of last year. So we have actually known about the setting for the new Assassin's Creed. If you're a sifter and you're on Sifted, you would have known about this for the last 13 months, which is really crazy.
Well, it didn't get confirmed until a week ago.
Yeah.
And like,
but it was right.
It was sort of. I mean, there was another leak about it that was completely wrong. There was a troll where the Assassin's Creed Ragnarok leak, which was completely false and fabricated.
What was false about it?
All of it.
I don't remember.
It was literally made. It was literally made up. It was just somebody trolling. Like it was not even like a leak of anything. It was just somebody had heard the rumor of it being Vikings and just made up a bunch of bullet points that seemed semi-plausible. Oh. But it was not real at all.
I mean, it could have absolutely been called Ragnarok at one point.
Could have been, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense as a subtitle. Ubisoft is saying it wasn't.
Yeah, for some reason they like to name these things with V's, I guess. And and also remember, what was was it Syndicate? They could have changed it. I don't know, but Syndicate was originally called Victoria.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep.
And because it had a V because it's supposed to be 5 and everything. Yeah. They changed it to Syndicate, I guess, because the Victoria title leaked. So now the Ragnarok, the person who posted the Ragnarok leak admitted they made the whole thing up. There was no grain of truth at all.
Oh, okay. So before we get into this topic, I want to bring Mitch in on this because before the show started, he basically said to me, like, I have some things that I want to say about Valhalla. So Mitch Sikorsky, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm uninspired and unexcited about this game because I don't think it's an Assassin's Creed game anymore. I mean, I think it's gone away from the franchise. I mean, to credit, I played a tiny bit of Origins and I stopped because it was buggy as heck and I could not get through it. Like my first 2 minutes in that battleground scene, I fell through the floor. Like that's my first minute in this game and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a nightmare.
You mean Origins?
Origins, yep. And then I played Odyssey, and I'm still kind of going through Odyssey right now, but it has lost so many of the elements that I appreciate of Assassin's Creed that made me feel as if this isn't really an Assassin's Creed game anymore. It's just a historical game.
What elements are you talking about?
And so the elements are, one, assassinations are like not even significant anymore due to the fact that in Odyssey, if I get behind somebody and I stab them, they don't die always. Like if they're too powerful, you only take a shred of their health and then you're forced to do their combat system. And in every other Assassin's Creed game, if you strategically put yourself to the point where you can put the jump on them, you should be rewarded with that kill. There's no hidden blade in there. The elements in the story of the Assassin's Guild is a little bit thrown away. Now in Origins, I know it's the origin of the Creed itself, but in Odyssey so far, what I've played of, which I'm probably about 20 hours in right now, I don't see any connection to the Assassins, but I do see the connection to, I think they're called the Asus, the gods that came before them, or the people, but they call them gods.
You'll get the connection eventually later on. And also remember that Odyssey takes place like 200 years before Origins, which is weird, but there you go.
True.
He does bring up a good point, though. If he's played for 20 hours, and I hadn't even realized this.
He's played for 20 hours. He's barely a third of the way through the game.
He is, but he has played for 20 hours, and he has seen no signs of the Assassins versus the Templars.
Because it's even earlier. So I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan from day one, really. Me too. I'm one of the people who defends the first game.
Oh, and I love the first game. Don't get me wrong. That is amazing.
I think we all do.
And mind you, the first game is the only game in the entire series that actually has proper assassination planning.
Yep.
They really moved away from that.
Yeah.
So I did play Assassin's Creed 2 again during quarantine. I played Unity. Finally finished Unity. I never finished Unity.
I never finished it either. It's probably the only Assassin's Creed that I didn't finish.
And I replayed Rogue. And I'll tell you this. So I've played Origins twice, 100%. I played Origins 100% completion twice. I've played Odyssey to 100% complete. Odyssey to 100% completion, 170 hours. So I love all these Assassin's Creeds. I do agree that the reinvention with Origins changed the franchise substantially into more of a sort of an open world grand action scope game. I think it's an improvement, or at the very least, it's a lateral move that was needed, because going back to the older games, oh boy, like some of that stuff not good anymore. Like Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood are like my watchword favorites. Going back to them was rough. Like they don't hold up, I don't think, anymore.
I agree with both of you. I agree with Mitch that it's not Assassin's Creed anymore.
Yeah.
I agree with Matt that the games are way better than they were before. So I am not a person who gets caught up in, and we talked about this with Resident Evil in a prior episode. I'm not the person who gets caught up in expectations. I don't say this is this franchise, so it has to have X, Y, and Z in it. I just play the game. Either I like the game or I don't like the game. If it's called something or it's not called, I don't care. Like all I care about is if I play the game, am I enjoying it? Is it worth the money that I or somebody else would spend on it? And in that way, I still love Assassin's Creed. It's not what it started out as. No, I mean, it's almost unrecognizable. Look in the trailer for Valhalla. If you had watched that trailer and just cut it off right before the last 10 seconds where he reveals the hidden blade, you'd never know that was Assassin's Creed. It could have just been any Viking-based action RPG. And I think that, to me, is where the franchise has changed the most. You used to know immediately when you started watching media for an Assassin's Creed game. There was a style to it. There was a flair with how they did their marketing that I feel like they've also kind of lost over time.
I think that's because the marketing drove that franchise originally. Because
it did. That debut trailer is just iconic.
Yeah, but also not in a great way in some ways. So one of the running gags of the series, especially early on, was like, why does the assassins, who are supposed to be the secret killers that operate in complete shadow, and so, why do they wear a uniform? Yeah, because there's a thing where it's like, how do we find the assassin? I don't know. Look for the guy in white with a hood, with the little eagle thing on it. And the Ezio was originally supposed to be completely normally dressed, like a normal Italian man of the era. And the Ubisoft marketing said, no, he has to look like Altair.
Yeah.
And so they changed him to look like that. And that's why everybody dresses the same. Whereas the Templars, who are not secret, I mean, they are a secret society, but they aren't supposed to be sneaking through crowds and stuff. They all dress differently. You'd never be able to tell it's a Templar on sight, but the assassins have kind of that
a uniform
going on.
And they kind of make them like superheroes a little bit. Yeah.
So and I get kind of the new games are sort of telling the deep origin of the Assassins Templar thing. Origins gets into sort of the original establishment of that. And to be fair, that is telling a story that was first established in Assassin's Creed 2. Aya is one of the statues in the underground hideout in Ezio's villa. She's standing there, and then Odyssey. I don't know exactly how. I mean, Odyssey gets into the first people more, and Cassandra is more connected to them than she is to the assassins. I think Odyssey's point is to lay down the backstory lore for the alien god people.
First Civilization, I think they're called.
First Civilization, especially because you are directly interacting with a bunch of them. By the end of the DLC, you're just sort of hanging with them, which is interesting. And Vikings, Valhalla, I'm interested to see where they take this, because at some point you're going to have to finally kind of meet up with the old series. You're going to have to sort of establish what we saw the Assassin Order as in Altair's day. How did that go from there to here? Yeah. And I'm interested to see how that all connects up. That could take another 10 years at this rate. I feel like we got at least one more game of evolving the hidden blade until we finally explain why they started cutting their ring fingers off. But I enjoy sort of just the basic open one. I do find it annoying, that early on, especially before you can do the upgrades in the various skill trees, the assassinations basically just give you a quick, take a third of their health off before you sword fight thing going on. It's not the stealth assassination game that it used to be, but I really enjoy what they turned it into. And I can see the argument that if you got a certain thing out of Assassin's Creed, that these new games do not deliver that anymore. But what they deliver instead, I like just as well.
And I will agree with you that these games are good games, for sure. And I would rather see it titled something else, to be honest.
I would like to see them come back to the
I understand your argument, Shane, of expectations going into something, but the title does have meaning. The title comes with a brand, and that brand has foundational elements in it. And yes, you can change a brand, but with changing that brand, what people find that they enjoyed from it can go away, and then they don't enjoy that brand no longer. And it doesn't.
I just enjoy Gears Tactics.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess in the sense, I mean,
and I don't hate Gears after playing Gears Tactics.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I mean, the games are good. It will be an interesting setting with the Vikings, but I really wish they would just take some of the elements back from the original to make it an assassination game, because I feel like there's no plan, and that's the issue. There's so many of these games, and it feels like it's, in a sense, Call of Duty, because you're releasing a game almost every single year, and they sometimes touch each other in a sense of like connection, but you could just play one and let it go. And I feel like the investment no longer is there for you to continue playing the series every single game. Then why are you playing it every single game?
All right, let's start talking about the details of Valhalla, because we've just been talking about just Assassin's Creed in general so far. So you play as Avor, I believe is how you say the name. Avor can be a male or a female character. There's tons of customization options. In fact, it sounds like they're completely removing leveling from this game, and everything else is going to be built on gear and your gear level. Sounds a whole lot like Destiny to me.
They said God of War is the comparison.
Oh, okay, which I'm obviously 100% okay with. But yeah, it got absurd, honestly, in Odyssey. Like, I'm playing Assassin's Creed, my character is like level 79 or something. Like, I don't know. It just seemed a bit ridiculous because those games are so long, and then they put out so much DLC. I think I like the concept of gear, but it does make me nervous that they're trying to turn this into a churning game as a service where people are just going to be constantly grinding to get that ultra rare chest piece or that helmet or whatever else, or some weapon that's more
I can't
powerful.
imagine that's going to be a thing.
I hope not, but
there's been tons of loot in the last two games anyway, and like that, you've never been at a disadvantage in that regard. Like, there's no reason to grind that hard for something like that unless it's a multiplayer game and you really want a distinct advantage over another human being. Like, in terms of like a single player game like this, you're never going to hit a point where you absolutely have to have this special thing to be competitive. Like, it'll be fine. Like, Ubisoft has never had a big problem balancing that kind of thing here. And if they're taking God of War as their template, even better. My concern is more along the lines of, will progression feel meaningful in a way that Odyssey's didn't? Because Odyssey, eventually I hit a plateau where I felt like nothing could really kill me.
Yeah, I remember you showed it to me when I came over there. I was like, you're so OP compared to the game at this point.
Yeah, and they kept the scaling kept up there, but even with the scaling, like keeping them within like 3 levels of you, by the time the last like 40, 50 hours of the game, like with the DLC and everything, like I was almost literally a god. Like, there was like no one could touch me unless I happened to run into something that like really bypassed my defenses in a weird way, which happened a couple of times. But in general, I walked around that game with no fear of anything. And,
one thing I do like about Valhalla is that you can keep your gear. So there's not a lot of churn with gear. It's all about like upgrading it and decorating it and making it what you want. So if you find a piece of gear in the game's first hour and you just like the way it looks and you want to keep that for your character, you can do that all the way till the end of the game. You can just keep buffing that original set of armor that you got when you started the game.
I mean, you could do that
That's
in
cool.
Odyssey
I like
as well. You can do that in Odyssey.
Can you?
Yeah. You can buff things up. You can.
I thought there was a certain point though where it became untenable.
They changed some of that in updates, so you can keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. You can also change the appearance of any piece of gear to look like any other piece of gear.
Oh, okay.
So because you can't change the properties, you can't change like what an armor set does or like what a special
ratings or whatever.
But I found like some, about halfway through the game, I found an armor set that I liked the best, and every time I would upgrade to a new set of high level armor, I just go through with a cosmetic thing and change it to look like my favorite set. So this looks like it's going to have a little more less magically turn it into something that looks completely different and more like add like straps and and scalps, or I don't know whatever bear fur or something, whatever you're gonna do. I don't know what this is gonna be.
Well, it looks like you can have a bear. They released the first image for DLC. It's like an exclusive mission because I guess you saw that they're shacking up with Xbox for this game.
Yep.
So the first DLC is exclusive to Xbox, and the image for it is you with a bear. So it looks like you're going to have like a polar bear that fights on your side. There's a lot more details we got to get through. Let's try to get through some of these. The game takes place in Norway and England. There are 3 major cities that you visit: London, Winchester, and Jorvik. I probably pronounced that completely incorrectly, but I'll take my lashes for that. You can dual wield almost any combination of weapons. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to use an axe and a bear.
Well, the axe obviously is the one that they really focused on in the first trailer.
And classic Viking weapon.
It's I honestly don't know what a classic Viking weapon is. What is it?
Axes.
Is it an axe? Is that what they would
and a
use?
shield? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess they're keeping it authentic, but being able to dual wield any combo is pretty cool. The hidden blade is in the trailer. I wonder if you'll be able to dual wield with the hidden blade as well. I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. Usually the hidden blade is kind of its own thing.
It has skill trees. No, it is. You're right. It is usually its own.
It's a very different take on the hidden blade.
Might be a special ability that you could activate.
More of a Wolverine thing.
It could be. Yep. Let's see what else. I have a bunch of notes here. Ubisoft has described the game as brutal. So if we're using that God of War comparison again, I'm wondering if they just kind of patterned a lot of stuff after God of War, because God of War is also freaking brutal. And I would not use that word to describe Assassin's Creed in general.
No, I wonder how much of that is like them describing the game and how much of it is them describing the cutscenes.
Or them describing what it was like to create the game.
Yeah, well, to me that sounds like it's brutal in the sense that like there's going to be some gnarly stuff in the story cutscenes.
Yeah,
more than like the game itself is going to be. Yeah, because I would say God of War's gameplay is brutal.
No, I think brutal means it's dismemberment. Like they're focusing on dismembering your enemy. So brutal as in like you're chopping off their legs, their arms, their heads. Like Odyssey is already pretty violent, but man, this could take it a whole new level.
I mean, there's some. It is Vikings. You wanna be authentic to the stereotypical Viking.
One thing I was happy to hear from the development team is that enemy variety was one of their big focuses for this game.
That is one serious shortcoming of Origins and Odyssey. That's true. Although Odyssey got better with the DLC, they started adding more weird stuff. I mean,
the part of the problem is that the games are just so long that you'd have to have so many different enemy types for them to not become repetitive. It's almost impossible.
Or at least just have them fight a little differently.
Yeah, that could help.
Like at the very least, like a little more verve in how these. I just played something where I was impressed by. Can't remember what it was now. I was playing something. I was impressed by how differently, like a guy with a spear fought versus a guy with a sword or an axe. And I was like, I remember thinking, because it was right around the time Valhalla was like announced that the trailer hadn't hit yet, but it was coming. It was like that one day space there, and I remember thinking, because Assassin's Creed was on my mind, like it'd be nice if the Assassin's Creed enemies had a little more specificity to them. And I mean, because obviously the spear guy in Assassin's Creed pokes with a spear, but like whatever I was playing, like had different move, like they fought different. Their footwork was different. It didn't feel animation. Like fighting. Yeah, it didn't feel like you were fighting just an guy with an axe versus a guy with a sword. Is just then the difference is just sort of how fast he swings. It felt like the axe guy was using different tactics.
I'm very happy to hear that was something that they made a point to bring up on day one of announce. So that means that they have really taken some time to work on it.
I think they are aware of that. I've been saying for a while that like I really like Origins and I really like Odyssey. Odyssey feels like a synthesis of what Origins was sort of a prototype of. But this next one is really going to prove whether this formula has legs or not, or if they're just going to redo the same game over and over again.
Yep. You have a long ship, so ship combat is in. You have a crew that you can train and improve over time. Again, something people really like from Assassin's Creed that's making a comeback. Doesn't seem like there's a lot that's changed with how they're handling it, though. One element of Assassin's Creed that seems to like come and go depending on the entry is the home base. There have been so many versions of it. Sometimes the games go hardcore into it. Sometimes it doesn't exist. Sometimes it's just a very light kind of approach. But this time they're going all in again. So you'll be recruiting people when you recruit soldiers, they become a part of your settlement. And then they live in your settlement, and then you grow your settlement. And you grow your clan that actually goes out on missions and fights with you. So it sounds like the community angle of the game, I wouldn't say it's new because prior games have done it, but it looks like they're going back to the more hardcore approach on that stuff. Did you like those features in prior games, Matt?
Yeah, I like them. I don't feel like they've ever gone far enough with them. Like the closest they got to really getting there, I think for me was Brotherhood.
Yep.
Where
that was what I was going to say.
Like
yep. And then they took huge step backs after that. Like it was really weird.
Assassin's Creed 3 is one giant step back. Like I don't like Revelation very much just because it feels like a stopgap game made by people that didn't really understand how Assassin's Creed worked. But Assassin's Creed 3 to me is where the series faltered and didn't recover until Origins. Because Assassin's Creed 3 is where some key people, including I think Patrice, left the company, and the people who then moved in and took over changed the control scheme. This is the thing that really was driven home to me when I replayed 2 in Brotherhood. Like the control you had over Ezio was astounding. Like even though I think the mission design really doesn't hold up today, like running around the city and being able to control it just felt good. And then you go to Assassin's Creed
climbing
3,
felt great.
And like they made it Assassin's Creed for dummies. And
you could run in trees though, man.
Run in trees, yeah, but it was all automatic. There was no like you couldn't even control when you left cover anymore. Like that was the thing. The fact that the games previous to that had the thing where you hold the right trigger to go loud. Yep. Was great. Whereas then, like, Assassin's Creed 3
that's where the game changed, let's be honest, when they got rid of that whole mechanic.
Assassin's Creed 3 made everything context sensitive, so you just go in the bushes and he jumps in the bushes. But if you step out of that little zone that the developer said this is a bush, he just Connor would just stand straight up, and everyone's like, and that was a problem through Black Flag as well. Black Flag is great with the pirate stuff and the ship stuff. As soon as they make you step foot on land, you're playing a shitty version of Assassin's Creed again. And especially and of course to make up for all that, they added more eavesdropping missions. So
the worst missions in all of that franchise's history.
So, and to this day, to the end of that, even in Syndicate to some degree, you had that thing where because they simplified, they would call it streamlining. I think they dumbed down the controls, and because of the dumbing down, giving you less control, you had things where these characters would just stick to stuff. I specifically remember especially Black Flag, where you'd be chasing someone and what's his name? Whatever his name was, I can't remember his name. The guy you play in that, but you're just running down a street, and suddenly he just sort of jumps onto a barrel, like you just sort of or hops up on like a chair, and like you're like, I didn't tell you to do that, but he sort of auto moved to jump on the chair because the game thought if you're near a thing you can climb, you're going to want to climb it, and it's just.
Origins, I had a lot of problems with that, where he would just attach to stuff. And again, this was before it was all patched. Or he would just like run on
Origins
wall.
Had that problem. Origins didn't have it as bad as some of them, but it still had it. Odyssey really smoothed that out. But Assassin's Creed 3, where they ruin the controls, is basically where they developed. That problem does not exist in the Ezio games. Because you control when he sticks to stuff. And it's just a shame what happened there. But,
the good news is that there are 12 studios working on this game. 12. So you can't really pin it on anybody anymore. It is really a collective effort.
I think you can, because like usually when you're dividing things up like that, you're talking about like this studio did texture stuff, or this studio
does the audio or whatever.
Someone is to blame for sticking to the barrel, and I will find you.
Another point is that Valhalla is cross-gen, so it's coming to this generation, PS4 and Xbox One, but it's also coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And to your point earlier about having more animation routines, different AI, that is something that could absolutely be done by the next generation consoles. But because it's a cross-gen game, the chances of that happening are probably like 0. And that's just a drawback of the transition from one generation to another. You're going to get these games that are kind of hangovers that aren't quite taking advantage of everything the new consoles can do. But I would also guess that it will be one of the top-selling PS5 and Xbox Series X games by the time the year is over. So it is what it is. The games will look gorgeous, but you're not going to really see a lot of that next-gen stuff. The visuals will be gorgeous. The load times will be gone.
Yeah, I mean, even in the trailer, I was like, wow, that's what that's going to look like on the new systems. Like some of those big landscape shots.
Pretty crazy.
Which is great. But
yeah,
I think it will play very similar.
The trailer looks great.
Yeah.
I'm in. I mean,
I'm in for all the Assassin's Creeds. I mean,
I'm always in.
Assassin's Creed. I'm going to play it.
I mean, I typically love the franchise, and I do agree with Mitch that it has changed, and agree with you that it has changed a whole lot. But the bottom line is that they've always been excellent video games. And some people may like some entries more than others because they like one element of the franchise more than another. I just like it all because they're just high quality games that I feel like I can usually safely recommend to people I care about to buy, and they're not going to come back a month later and be like, bro, I hate you. So I'm all in on Valhalla. It looks great. It's coming out this year. Like I said, cross-gen.
Unless the systems get delayed, if this was what Ubisoft was talking about.
That's true. It's possible. But then you could still pick it up on your PS4 or your Xbox One.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't wait if they still brought out the current gen versions.
Actually, what will you do, Matt? What if they put out the current gen versions in like late October, and then the PS5 Xbox Series X version comes out in like November or early December? What would you do? Would you wait?
I mean, it would probably depend on what else was coming out around that time. But if it was looking really good, I can see myself getting it either for the Xbox One X and hoping that it would be compatible when the new one came out.
That's probably the way to do it.
Or possibly just getting it on PC.
Yeah, that sounds like the way to go.
Especially because
PS4 out in the cold.
Yeah, especially because I mean, I did play Origins twice. If I had the time, I would think about playing Odyssey again. But that's it's a 170-hour game. Like this, it'd be a hard commitment.
Well, if I remember right,
so I wouldn't be too worried about having to replay it on a new system.
I believe the Xbox version does have smart delivery. So if you bought the Xbox version, you don't have to worry about the upgrade. But
it does have smart delivery.
You do.
Yeah. And I mean, well, yeah, because it also isn't going to upscale games the way that the Xbox Series X is going to from Xbox. So
I mean, I would probably stick with Xbox on this one also because of the DLC deal and the exclusive, I tend to like kind of lean Xbox in terms of power, but in terms of like early on when you can't tell which system to do it with, I tend to lean towards whichever one has the marketing deal because it means you'll get stuff first and it's kind of the lead platform.
Yep. And then the last thing,
more attention.
Yeah, the last thing I should mention before we go is that they have confirmed, the developers confirmed that the Assassins and the Templars are in there. But just the fact that they have to mention that really does show you where the franchise is right now.
Sort of. I mean, the weird thing is that Odyssey was a prequel. Like, it's weird that you made a game called Origins and then you made a game that takes place before it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's worth it because the ancient Greek setting is really cool.
Yeah.
But it's this is the first game to continue the story on from Origins, so we get to see how things have evolved in the intervening how many years, whatever this could probably gonna be like 1100 years or something.
Yeah.
A lot can happen in 1,000 years.
It's
apparently, and I guess they didn't want to do a Dark Ages game, but it's and you are closing in, like you're within a couple centuries of Altair at this point, so there might be some connective tissue happening here.
So, Mitch, what about you, man? You were pretty pissed off about it.
I mean,
are you interested? Are you going to play it?
No, I'll play it. I mean, I just wanted to lay my beef out there and, just let people know my thoughts of the franchise going into the future. But, again, they're good games. I actually enjoyed this more than I enjoyed The Witcher 3 because it's not breaking on me constantly. So, even though the side missions in which are much better, but it's a better functioning game in my regard.
It's a cleaner code for sure.
For sure. So I am interested in this one, and I am looking forward to doing a Viking rap battle. Like, that will be fun. So, and tattoos all over my body. There's a lot of cool immersive elements that the game transitioning this way does help. And I think I'm excited about what they do with the time periods going forward, and I'll just play it for that.
Okay. All right. It's time for our Q&A, folks. So get your questions into chat at Sifted Games. It makes it a lot easier for us to see them. While you guys are asking some questions, I'm going to scroll up and see if I can find any Twitch Prime to thank people for. I think I saw Gurzilla earlier had subscribed. And once again, it's cut off. I don't know why my chat does this. It'll only scroll back up so far, and like all the chat from early on in the show is gone.
It's a memory
I'll write
thing.
it down, but there wasn't very many in the middle of the stream.
Okay, cool. I just want to try to get everyone if I can. And thanks to the two guys who were handing out subs earlier, Sound Wizard, and who was the other one? Tiny2K, I think?
Yeah.
Only 2K.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. That's awesome. Sifters, I hope you're thanking them for spreading the love. Let's see, some questions. Kevin Rafa, which game do you miss in this generation? I guess he's saying what franchise that no longer exists do you miss this time around?
Mass Effect.
Yeah, that'll probably be everyone's number one, is my guess.
Because I know another game came out with the title on it, but that wasn't Mass Effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that you leave it alone. I don't really want more Mass Effect. I just want a remaster. The other thing I would probably go with is Star Wars. Like it's old I thought this generation was gonna have a whole bunch of Star Wars games, and we got 2 Battlefronts and a good Fallen Order game, but like nothing. Now, at this point, I'm jonesing for that Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga game just to have more Star Wars content. I mean, just get on with it.
This one's easy for me. I mean, it's Metroid.
Well, Metroid wasn't even here last generation.
That's what I'm saying. So if there's one that I'm missing, there you go. Hopefully that gets remedied soon.
we got the 3DS one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't count when he says like this generation. I don't count like handhelds in that. But and that Metroid game was good. So
I'll take what I can. Beggars can't be choosers with Metroid.
we have to take what we can get. I mean, we don't have a choice. Hopefully that's rectified soon. I mean,
yeah, I'm hoping we see whatever Mercury's team's been working on. I hope we get a new Metroid game from them.
It would be nice.
Year.
Absolutely, for sure.
I'm missing another Portal game. That's what
Portal.
I want.
Yeah. Now that Valve is back in alive and kicking, maybe it's a possibility now that we get a new Portal. For a long time, I really didn't think it was possible. I didn't really think it was going to happen.
My thing with that would be that the people who wrote those games aren't there anymore. And I would not really want to see them attempt it without the people who wrote, without Eric and Chet.
I mean, let's be honest, that's what made that game.
Yep.
I mean, the writing was amazing. The voice acting obviously carried it, but the writing is really what set it off.
Yeah, those games were written by the guys who did Old Man Murray, if you remember that site.
Yeah, I do. I remember very well. Does it still exist, or is it gone now?
Oh, that shut down like 2003, 2002. Oh,
wow.
It's still up there. I think you can still see it, but they haven't written anything new for it since they got hired for actual real writing gigs. But those
Tiny2K, 2,000 bits. Thanks, bro.
Those guys, that's who wrote Portal. The Portal games is the people who did that, and which was a site that we used as a template for X-Play when we were developing that.
Yep.
That Rune review.
That's right. ETH Demon, he brings up something that maybe we should have mentioned in the show. What are your predictions for the Xbox event? There's an event this Thursday. We should have mentioned also during the Assassin's Creed section that Assassin's Creed Valhalla's gameplay is most likely to be debuted on Thursday at the Xbox event. The Xbox event is all third party. It is not any first party stuff. Although today Phil Spencer said that Series X and Halo Infinite still confirmed for holidays this year. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, back to ETH Demon's question. What are your predictions for the event, Matt?
Well, I'm thinking probably some Halo.
They said no first party, only third party.
Oh, no first party?
Yeah.
God, who knows then? Maybe probably gameplay for Assassin's Creed, and maybe they'll show Watch Dogs Legion again.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect. It makes it exciting. It's
maybe new COD.
It's about time.
Yeah,
it is. No, this is the time. So if you go back and look, Activision unveils the new Call of Duty within the first 2 weeks of May every year. Every year without fail. You do an event in the first week of May, and then you see like the first look at maybe the campaign. And then at E3, they blow out the multiplayer, and you get to check out the multiplayer. So we are due. You're absolutely right. It could be, there's, again, rumors floating around that the next Black Ops is called Call of Duty Vietnam. It's not going to use the Black Ops name, but it's supposed to be set in the same universe. It's like a reimagining of Black Ops 2, I think it was. So it's possible. It's very possible that we see it. Although there's also word flying around that it's in development hell. And that Treyarch had to come in and save the project.
And
Hype train is your level 3.
My long shot, just thing I'd want to see is the KOTOR remake.
Oh, that's not bad. I mean, third party wise, there's not a lot of stuff that isn't known.
No, I mean, you could show. I guess you could like FIFA.
Yeah, I was thinking sports games. So
you can show Madden,
FIFA, NHL, NBA 2K.
And you know what? Third parties are going to want to show their games on Series X.
Yeah,
because it's going to be the games are going to look better much more quickly on Series X than they are on PlayStation 5. They may ultimately look a little better on PS5 once developers have worked with them for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see a pretty big FIFA thing.
Me either.
On this.
Because it's huge. It's like the second best-selling game in the world. So it makes sense. And if they sign a deal with EA for FIFA, that could be freaking huge. So
I'd also like to see a little something about Elden Ring, but I feel like we're not going to get that this year.
It might be perfect timing for that, though.
Might be, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's late next year.
Because I think what you're going to look at is you're going to see Microsoft getting out ahead of PlayStation announcing its marketing partnership. So it's going to, even though we know already that Ubisoft is working with Xbox on Valhalla, there's a Call of Duty. I mean, next gen, Call of Duty could become an Xbox franchise again.
Choose your sides.
They could announce that on Thursday, that DLC will be coming first to Xbox Series X instead of PlayStation 5. So there could be some big stuff going down on Thursday, even though we're not going to see any of Halo Infinite or any of Microsoft's other first-party stuff. So I'm excited for it. Beyond Sifted on Thursday, we'll have it curated and pinned to the top of everyone's
have to show us what that Fable game looks like eventually.
Yep.
Well, just to clarify one of your statements, Shane, first-party stuff, I'm looking at a screen to read it, so... is that July is when they will show off first party. It's a first party showcase.
Okay, that makes sense. That'll give them plenty of time. That's a good 3 or 4 month buffer for people to digest everything and start planning, what they're going to buy and how much they're going to spend. So it makes sense. Tomb Raiders, we answered that one already. SJD Swanland, are you excited for the Taika Waititi Star Wars film? Taika Waititi. I don't even know who he is. I saw it
He directed Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit.
And the last episode of The Mandalorian.
Yes, he's if I had a top like 3 hot directors now, I'd want to direct a Star Wars movie. He'd be one of them easily. So yes, that's very good news and very exciting news, and we'll see what he does with it.
Yeah, and I watched the documentary series just the other day, and it talked about the directors, and hearing what he had to say made me more excited about him directing an actual film.
Ragnarok was great, so I'm in.
And he's doing the next one, too.
Oh, great. Now people are subscribing. Emperor Dread, thank you for subscribing. One Super Master Gamer, thank you for Twitch Prime. Mega Drive Guy, thank you for Twitch Prime. You guys remembered last week where I said wait until the end. That's awesome.
Oh, and it's about time to see Arkham, isn't it?
That's true.
That's true.
That's a good point, Matt. Oh, snap.
Well, they were going to do it at E3, so this might be too soon.
Maybe.
Because
all bets are off now. All bets are off now.
I'm just thinking, like, all of a sudden, we thinking
it's
going to be like a 2-hour event.
Valhalla, I guarantee that was supposed to be an E3 reveal. And now we got it a month earlier.
Yeah, or it was supposed to be like a May, like, Judges Week reveal, and then gameplay at E3.
Yep.
Like, we're hitting that point where we'd start to see stuff and start to see leaks. Be interesting to see what the leaks are this year if that happens, because if you don't have to transport all your shit to E3, like, that leak opportunity is not really there anymore.
Yeah, it's less.
So if you don't like the E3 spoilers, this might be your year.
Yep.
Ubisoft will still screw it up somehow.
Well, when you got 12 studios, somebody's going to tell somebody something. So somebody's going to leave a laptop on the plane again, like they always do.
Or on the subway. Darmist, Score Fear, Wampler 13. Thank you for Twitch Prime. You guys rock. Any interest? This is from Congram 1. Any interest in returning to Mortal Kombat 11 for the story expansion? That was just leaked today or announced today. Seems to set a precedent for fighting games with an ongoing story. Yes, hell yes.
Yeah, I'd be into that. I mean, I wish there was more of that. Like, especially from NetherRealm, just because they're the ones who do it the best stories in those games. Yep. And I hope I'd like to see Injustice 3 at some point.
If anything, I just want to support it. To encourage it in the future. So, yeah, I will definitely dig in. We got some new emotes from the hype train. Thanks, everybody. I saw Justin Horman, I think, just gave us like 1,000 bits or something. You guys are flipping awesome. Let's see. Mike's Q. Will any of you play Them's Fightin' Herds? I'm not even sure what that is.
That was a fan-made My Little Pony fighting game that got C&D, so they just turned it into a bunch of different animals fighting.
Oh, okay.
I have not played it, but I've watched some like one-off tournaments of it, and it's fun. I mean, it plays like Marvel. Looks like.
Vincent, this is crazy. I'll check it out. I probably won't play it. I'll watch it on YouTube now that I know what it is.
It's been around a while.
Okay. I have heard about it. I had heard about
Yeah, I get it.
I get it. I had heard about it from Vincent on the TV in the back. This is interesting. On the TV in the background while watching GameFace today, I saw there was a commercial for SnowRunner on Food Network. What's the strangest game you've seen a commercial for in mainstream media? Bonus points if it's a strange fit. Wow. That's hard. I mean, Daikatana back in the day, like it had commercials and the game ended up being awful. But a lot of bad games have had commercials. Not so much anymore, though. Publishers have started to figure out, okay.
Yeah, people are more savvy now in terms of making commercials that make more sense. Going through some of these old game magazines has been amazing just in terms of what qualified as actual advertising. Especially like a lot of the Sega, like the Genesis era stuff where it's just a 2-page spread of insults to me. Like it's like you're too pathetic to get a girlfriend, so why don't you play our game?
You'll never win, so lose in Sonic. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, they used to attack people. I mean, there's a talk. It's interesting, though. For whatever reason, there is an appeal to people when they are berated. There's a sports talk guy that I listen to in Pittsburgh during the day while I'm working. All he does, literally, it's a call-in show, and he calls every caller an idiot, a moron, a buffoon, and they just keep calling in. And he is the most popular sports talk guy in Pittsburgh. His show is tops in the ratings, and he literally calls every one of his fans/listeners a moron or an idiot. And he's not joking about it. He's serious. The people just keep coming. So there's something there. Like there's a certain type of person who resonates with that for some reason. I'm not one of them, but there are people out there that are like that.
Is he as serious as Alex Jones on eating his neighbors?
Oh, exactly. That's right. He said he'd eat his neighbors if he had to.
I'm gonna eat my neighbors.
I'll say
feed
this:
his daughters, but
good,
not
man.
his son. He won't feed his son. He'll feed the daughters only.
You're pretty good, man. Yeah, Justin actually gave us 1,500 bits. Thank you, man. That's freaking awesome. Let's see if we have any more questions. Scorpier, do you see Sony trying their own version of Game Pass, something better than PlayStation Now? No, I think PlayStation Now is their Game Pass.
Yeah, I don't think Sony will. I think Sony might dip their toe in that idea, but I don't think they're going to jump in with both feet like Microsoft did.
I don't think Sony can afford to lose money like Microsoft can.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the rub. Microsoft can lose just gobs of money knowing that it maybe is placing a bet on Series X to lead next generation. Sony can't bleed money like that, especially now. It's a consumer electronics company. That's where it makes all its money. It doesn't make its money selling like licenses for Windows. So it's also not done particularly well for the last like decade in its other consumer electronics departments. It's just not in the same position to be able to do that. So
and the other thing would be, why would you do it? To be honest, I mean, they have a top echelon of first party that people are willing to pay $60 for.
Yeah.
Why put that for free when Microsoft actually has something to prove compared to Sony? They don't have to prove anything with their first party at this moment with their track record.
Yep, for sure.
I did have a thing in this magazine I found this week that I wanted to read.
Okay.
Because we've talked about kind of the worry about originality and how like there's no originality in games or like whether everything's neat, clones or whatever. And I have repeatedly said that's just something people complained about since the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And so this is from the October 1992 issue of Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine.
The first video game magazine.
Yeah, the cover story is Sonic 2. So remember, this is a letter that somebody wrote to them It's
In
a letter of the month.
1992.
1992, the heyday of the Genesis. The Super Nintendo had just been out for about 6 months.
Yeah.
Zelda: Link to the Past was on the way. Super Mario World had just come out. Sonic 2 was about to be out like that month. Like, this is the heyday of video games. Okay, remember 1992 is when this is being written. I'm going to skim through it a little bit, but he basically says. So this guy says. The reference to the problem here I'm talking about is Andy Eddy's opening editorial. Andy Eddy, editor-in-chief of here.
Yep,
and the
talked
Game
about
Doctor's reply,
times.
The problem is the lack of truly enjoyable games to play on today's systems. Andy Eddy's editorial hit the problem on the head when he pointed out that if the games aren't fun, even the best system specs won't make them any better. He sees simplicity and durable gameplay as the defining features of a great game, not how good the graphics and sound are. And the last time I checked, the great board games that have endured over time had rather poor graphics, but they're simply fun to play and easy to grasp. Why aren't the games that much fun to play anymore? The Game Doctor had it pegged. Too many games today require you to conquer them. Once that's done, the game loses its appeal. Classic games like Missile Command, Asteroids, and Tetris cannot be conquered. You can get good at them, but the end is always you lose your last man and the game beckons you to see if you can reach just one more difficult level of play. The conquerable games are all too often take the shape of a horizontally scrolling run and jump contest that makes you wish Pitfall had never been written. The way companies keep coming out with these Me Too rehashes of what is becoming an extremely tired play mechanic. How about some originality and variety?
Now, to be fair, that was the end of the 2D era. And at that point, they had kind of squeezed everything out of those machines that they could.
Well,
they tried 3D with Star Fox and...
Well, no, they hadn't. This is 1992.
Oh, right.
None of that
is before that. That is before that.
None of this has happened yet. The Genesis was barely 2 years old. The Super Nintendo had only been out since 91.
That's true.
Like,
that's good.
This was the heyday of 2D games. This is when everything was the best it ever would be, 2D-wise.
For 2D, yeah.
But this is someone who grew, that guy's probably, in his late 20s, and he grew up in the arcade scene in the early 80s, and he doesn't understand all this newfangled home console stuff. And to be fair, yes, if you were using an NES back through the late 80s, the Mario clones were out of control, like just because it was the easiest kind of game to make on the system. But what I'm saying, I thought that letter was amazing. And also the response, they agree with him. They're like, yeah,
they do?
Yeah, they're like, oh, everything looks so boring and unoriginal now. We're worried that the crash of 83 is going to repeat itself soon.
8 years later, like 9 years later.
Because that's the reading. There's a lot more letters like that in this section of the era of the magazine. Because they were coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the big crash, everyone was like terrified it was about to happen again. There's a lot of editorials about how is this just a thing video games are going to do periodically?
Every decade.
Every 10 years or so when we get a little too big for our britches. And it's like,
that didn't happen. Yeah.
But I just think that's interesting. It was hilarious to me that this guy's writing about how nothing's original. And I'm like, dude, you could go out and buy Mario World right now.
And here we are 20 some years later, and we're still talking about it.
Yep. 28 years later. It's the same complaint.
28 years later.
28 years from now, people are going to be like, what happened to all the real original games like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn?
I know. It's nuts. It is. All right. That's it for episode 210 of GameFace. Thanks for the great questions. Thanks for all the Twitch Prime. Thanks for all the bits. Thanks for people just coming in and throwing around subs in our chat. This is why you guys got to show up for the live show. You get free subs from our other users. If you want to help us out, please head over to patreon.com/sifted. We are 100% supported by patrons and basically donations. We have no ad revenue to speak of. We're an ad-free website, so we need your donations to survive. So if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, head on over and kick us a buck or two. If you want to find us on social media, you can find the site @Sifted Games. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want alerts as to when new episodes go up or when our stream is going live, make sure you follow us on Twitter. If you want alerts for anything we do, that's always the best place to follow us. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm @Dinfire. Matt is @MKyle. That's MKEIL. And Mitch is @Mitch Sikor, SIKOR. On behalf of my two bros and behalf of myself, we'll see you next Tuesday here on Twitch. GameFace is up and out.